Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, thanks button, PayPal link and all of that good stuff in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Dal West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. I will also do a quick shout out to the GoFundMe I'm running on behalf of Flatzoid. So Flatzoid's trying to raise a few quid just to get a streaming PC together. So I've started a GoFundMe as he can't do it in his region. And it's currently up to £60 of 550 target. Hopefully to get him about $500 to build a second-hand PC after the fees taken from GoFundMe. So if you did want to support this campaign, even if you don't necessarily donate to it, there's a share button. So smash the share button. Copy the link, stick it in your Facebook, or smash the buttons that are there, provided by GoFundMe. And if you did want to actually donate and support the campaign to get GoFundMe for a new PC for Flatzoid, then make sure you set the tip amount, as they do take a fee anyway for running the service, down to 0, and then just add whatever amount that it is you want to add, and then hopefully we'll get him on his way to having a decent audio quality in his future live streams. So that's the GoFundMe campaign for Flatzoid's future streaming PC. Rough, ready, dirty secondhand that it will be, but we're about maybe 10% or a little bit more of the way there already, which is absolutely great after 24 hours. So yeah, please check out that campaign, share it. If you can chuck in a buck, that would be really appreciated.
Well, yeah, that's where we're at, right? That's what the book gives you. Someplace along the line, you got to pick up the truth.
Right. And that's what I got from that book originally. Don't get me wrong. Not even a little bit. I found a lot of very simple facts that were there to help me shape who I want to be. But, I mean, if the whole story's made up, the whole story's made up. Doesn't mean we can't learn from the story, but it does mean that it's not real. I think I'm kind of understanding some of these other groups out there a little better. From the Freemasons, they do a test. Oh.
I was just going to ask you to expand, and you've just started to as I interrupted. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So, like the Freemasons, when you want to join the club, one of the tests they test your brain, your heart, right? They put like the Bible, the Quran, and something else up on a stand, and they ask you which one is the real book. Like which one's the truth? They're all made up stories. My story's the only one. That's the answer to the riddle. My story. It's super interesting how they do it.
Sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me.
Well, you really got to think about it more.
Got a dodgy 10th man
mean,
trying to
I've
join
witnessed
again.
phenomenon. I've
Sorry, my bad
witnessed
again,
plenty of
interrupting.
phenomenon nobody can explain. Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm doing a terrible job today. I'm interrupting it all the wrong times. I waited for a pause to say there's a dodgy 10th man trying to get in, but then I talked over you. I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good.
Sorry.
Did you hear what I said?
Kind of.
3 books in front of you and said, pick the truth. And you said that they believe that they're all not true. They're all fairy tales or whatever you said. And that they only have their story's the truth. Correct?
Yeah. I mean, the reason they ask that question, it's a riddle. It's to see where your head's at. To see if you're going to be like, no, 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 you're wrong about this and you're wrong about that when they're trying to teach you something.
Which is...
I'm sticking with Jesus.
I'm sticking with the Father. I know there's a creator of this place. There's too much creation to go. There's no maker. That's just ignorance. But the chronology versus history, series of factual events versus a story told by somebody. That's the headspace I'm at right now.
But they kind of tell you all this stuff, right? They let you know in school that history's written by the winners, and they tell you what propaganda is. So they let you know. It's weird. That's one of the things I've never really figured out. I mean, I've spoken to people like Dave Weiss about this subject a long time ago, and his answer to me when I put this to him was to say that it's kind of plausible deniability. They absolve themselves of guilt if they tell you what they're doing. Now, at the time, I didn't know who they were. Now, you've obviously mentioned Freemasons, and at the time, he was kind of pointing towards that sort of they also, which is why my brain's jumped to him and that conversation that we had. But that was his, or Dave Weiss's take on it, which is to say they need to absolve themselves of guilt when they deceive you. Now, I don't know how true that is, but that has, like I say, led me to ponder, why do they tell you what propaganda is? Why do they tell you that history is written by the winners?
They tell you the truth to see how you're going to react. And then they tell you a lie to see how you're going to react. But see, most people think they got to put their children in public schools. Again, something else, a story was told to see how you react. Well, if you don't put your children in school, we're going to come to your house and we're going to take them from you and we're going to beat you up. Okay, but why do I have to put them in your school? Your school. Why can't I put them in a school where they're not going to be brainwashed with a bunch of bull? I mean, why not I just teach them everything that they need to know at home? Why not that?
Called homeschooling. It exists.
Say again? Say again, whoever said that?
I was informing him that it's called homeschooling. He's talking as if it's some foreign concept that doesn't exist, like it's a new ideology. It's out there. People do it all the time. Been doing it for a while.
You know how many parents have been put in jail for trying to homeschool in certain states? You know how many children have been kidnapped because of it? You're acting like none of this shit ever happens, dude.
I mean, some states you still have to. My wife homeschools. She has to send in a quarterly every 4 months, I think. But there's some states that you don't have to.
or a
Once you
year,
sign them out,
something like that. Well, again, now we're back down to code versus law. We're back fact versus fiction all over. Well, you have to tell us what you're doing with your property. Why do I have to tell you what I'm doing with my property? My offspring are my property. Why is my property
yeah,
any
because
of
you're born
your
into the
business?
system. You can't get around it. You're born into the system. Otherwise, you could be a free man, and yeah, you don't have to have a license. Hold on, you could drive your car without a license, and you could go as a traveler. But you're going to get locked up every time you get pulled over and you don't produce a license.
Well, yeah, but there's no law that says I have to have a license, so there's no law. We're back to there's no law. So somebody's enforcing their feelings, not a law.
The parents get funding off the government for homeschooling.
Yes, you can apply for funding.
Yeah, that should be the right way about it, though. Yeah, because they pay the schools, don't they? So if you're homeschooling, you should be getting some sort of funding from the government.
I think Mitchell in Australia gets a bit of funding for homeschooling, so
I don't get funding.
move to Australia.
Right. But a bigger problem that stands for the adults, say before you have children, what is a allodial title to the land that you live on? How funny it come from the UK. The whole idea about allodial title started over in Europe and Asia, and it's over here. And how few people over in Europe, Asia, UK even know what a allodial title even is today. It used to be a thing everywhere.
I think this is one of them things where you get into flat Earth, and then you get into everything else. You're
Well,
still
this is the funny
at the
thing.
feast of nonsense.
Earth was the last thing I got into, man.
Yeah, but from there, now you start the feast of nonsense.
There's no nonsense I'm feasting on, though. I'm looking for law. I see none other than what I make.
Go shoot your neighbor, and then you'll see a law.
Why would I just randomly shoot people? That's just silly.
You're saying the only law you see is what you make. That's not true. We're governed by laws, like it or not.
Morality isn't what I would call laws, but I follow morality. So murder, theft, things like that, yeah. I don't need a law to not do something that's immoral.
Okay, what do you think the law is based on?
Well, which one? Because code, statutes, regulations, ordinances are not laws. So those things aren't even laws based on their own terms. Because it doesn't start with LAW.
Land, air, and water.
Then you're going to tell me next that the Roman Catholics have your birth certificate and you were sold into them. I mean, I heard Bonaccio go off on a rant with this.
Why is that such a difficult thing to say? Because you heard it from Bonacci. I've studied it in history. I've studied the chronology. Your parents, when they sign a birth certificate, sell you to the state. They're not told that that's what they're doing, but they
Okay, so how do we get
describe
it
the
back
property that they're giving authority over to on the state on the application. You got
Okay,
red
and then
hair,
with this
green
authority,
eyes.
what do they do?
You're 22 inches long, 6 pounds, 8 ounces. They describe the property that they're giving authority to the government on the document. The
And
parents
how
got
does
tricked.
this affect me?
It does affect you a lot.
How?
I want
Well, dude,
You
you
can't
just said that if you
explain
don't have a license, you'll get pulled over. That must affect
So,
you somehow if you don't.
hold on.
the state.
If you don't,
There's another
how does that
component
tie in
about
with the
the.
license?
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Another component about the birth certificate, it also indicates who the parents are, which means someone can't come into a hospital and say, that's my child. Now you have
Hey,
records saying who the parents are. So there's a component to that that's actually beneficial.
you're breaking up real bad, Rags and Riches.
Oh, I thought that was me.
Not what he was saying, though. The fact that the parents are listed on the birth certificate shows like ownership. But registration is what the birth certificate is. Registration is transferring rights.
Okay, Cuddles, you have a baby in your house and you don't report it anywhere. How's that make it any better?
Yeah, I make a certificate of life at home like we used to, the old ways.
Protect the system back the way it used to be. Which I mean, I
Well,
think a lot of these systems are like even a driver's license. Even a driver's license. Do you think a 10-year-old should be driving on the road? Do you think so? Do you think a 10-year-old has enough
Yeah.
cognitive function to be able to drive on the road?
Yeah, you ever seen a
yeah.
10-year-old
think
out on the
so?
farm in a pickup truck, bro? They are clutch with it. I've seen a lot of
On the
very young children out in the middle of
that may
nowhere
be
that are very adept at driving.
that may be the case. Then argue the case that you should reduce the driver's license age
I think
from
they should,
16 to
honestly.
10. Well, then argue for that. But what about
does
what about a
nothing. It does
5-year-old? Do
nothing
you think
for
my
me.
5-year-old? Hold on. What about my 5-year-old? Do you think my 5-year-old should be driving a car?
It depends on how
No.
well you
Hold on,
train
but
them. I'm not trying to.
but
I'm not trying to segue you in semantics. I apologize. I
this,
shouldn't even have answered you. Go ahead.
I mean, I if I interject one, the it's a bit of a straw man talking about the 15 or 10, 6, whatever. Because at the end of the day, if a person has a farm and their 10-year-old is driving a truck to help them on the farm, and that's somehow practical use of that 10-year-old, and that 10-year-old's been trained to use that car safely, then that should be acceptable, right? That's kind of where the tradition of motorized coach comes from. I mean, I think the idea that the state is somehow obligated to control license driving is not necessarily a wholly true thing. Like sure, like there should be some regulation, but to say that the state is the bearer of safety and licensing for driving, I don't know if that's a completely honest assumption to make.
Well, that's fine. Well, here's the thing, though. You may be right at one level, but the other side of the level, if government, I mean, and I'm using the term loosely, mainly I'm using it because it's a colloquial term. Usually it's the rules of the people, right? That's to say the laws are in place to govern how the people think they should act with other people. So if you want to look at the message of that.
Yeah,
so,
no,
I mean,
I'm not anti-government.
Well, the other person is, though. Everything seems to be anti-government. Everything. I mean, I get the government is flawed. Don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing that everything that the government does is right. but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, there's
but I think Cuddles. I mean, I think Cuddles' contention is private versus public, right? There is a public domain, and in that public domain, there is some exchange of private rights. But I'm not speaking for Cuddles, but I'm just saying, like, specifically in the case of driving, it actually is a bit more ambiguous, because in fact there are people that don't have driver's license who are driving across the country, and it does serve a function, right? So the idea that the government specifically has the right to mandate me traveling in a motorized coach or vehicle, or say a horse and buggy, or whatever the case may be, isn't necessarily a wholly true thing, right? That's all I'm saying in that specific case.
That's why I keep telling everybody, you got to slow down when you get into this, because the state constitution for the state of Texas, the people of the state gave the government the authority to regulate commercial business only.
Okay, well,
so
let's think about
everything that they talk about is commercial and not private.
Okay, that may be okay. Let's that may be true. In Tennessee, I'm in Tennessee. When you read the law on driver's license and all that stuff, there seems to be a commercial component to that. That may be true, but let's look at it in another vein. Okay, do traffic laws make driving safe? Do they do that?
That's debatable, man. I would
say yes and some days no. It depends how they're applied, because all the traffic laws do where I live is generate massive amounts of income for public administration. I mean, do they make it any safer?
That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about simple, like stopping at a stop sign, being on the right or left side of the road, being stopping at the green and red light, knowing when to turn and when not to turn, knowing in a sense the rules of the road.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yes. I think
that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about anything else.
If everybody was to follow the structure that is in place, then yes, it would be safer.
Okay, so why do we? So every state in the union, every state in the republic, whatever you want to call it, you have to go through a driving test, which means you say, these are the rules of the road. I can drive safely on the road. And here's, in a sense, you can set a license or certificate saying, look, I have passed this. I know how to drive. That's why then after you pass that, then they can say, well, you broke the rules of the road and we can give you a ticket because you did not follow the rules that you said you're qualified to do on. So in that sense, it's almost like saying that you're qualified to do something. It's like, like an attorney. You went to school, you became an attorney or doctor. You passed X, Y, and Z, so that when you go, you get your license to be an attorney or being a doctor, because you say, I know what it means to do those things. I passed the requirements to do them. So there's a component. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You can't. Yeah, you can argue that some laws are bad, then fight those laws. But you can't also say that these laws, certain aspects of these laws are good, and even having a license is good because it shows who has passed the requirements to drive on the road.
Yeah, but my mom has a license and she can't drive. What the fuck?
Well, that's another argument. Then you can go in and make an argument saying, look, at a certain age, you have to go back and be retested. If you can't pass the test, then you lose your license. That's another argument.
Right. And a lot of us would agree on that on a moral-ish basis, right? But again, we get back to the licensing.
I think, the issue is the registration in this, and what Cuddles is mentioning, because the registration is what determines that car that you think that you own is not actually yours, similar to that of your kids.
It determines the jurisdiction.
It's a different thing, though. It's a completely different thing.
No, this is what we're talking about. This is exactly what we were talking about. You took it to something else.
Okay, well then, if you want to argue that the registration should be done away with and go in and fight your legislation, pass a law in your state that goes away.
The registration thing with the vehicle is the same exact scenario that Rags to Riches was just presenting for the safety of somebody coming and stealing your baby from the hospital. If your property is registered under your name, then you can go ahead and have that case back to fight and say, this is my stuff. It's documented. It's just for your own safe benefit.
No, I don't think so, man. I don't think so, man. If you're going to rely on a birth certificate and a hospital to protect your child, dude, are you really that great of a parent?
That's That's not what it is, but it's also just
That's
it's not
what you
like, oh,
just
I'm
that's what you
scared.
just stated it to be.
But
No,
here's the thing. I mean,
that was
it,
a metaphor that was presented earlier, like an example, and I was expounding on it. So it's this, but it's the same scenario. It's like your property, no matter whether you call it something living or just something material. If you don't have it registered and there's no record of it, then how are you going to prove that it's yours in the
What
court of law or
What do
any
you mean by
other system?
What do you mean by your property, though? Because
So we're
technically,
talking about
in my
registering
understanding,
things.
is that when you have
Yeah.
a property, when you own property, whether it be physical real estate or a vehicle, that should be yours, being the fact that you purchased it. No one should be able to take that
Exactly.
away
So
from you. The
how are you gonna
problem
prove
is,
that to
though,
someone
hold on,
else unless
I'm not
you
finished,
register
man.
it inside of a
Hold on,
system that everyone has access to?
hold on, buddy. The problem is that it's not yours. If you don't pay that property tax, if you don't pay that registration, you're liable to have your property taken.
You agreed on that deal when you bought the vehicle. So it's not like you're getting taken advantage of. That's something you agreed upon when you went and made that purchase. So the whole purpose of the
Correct.
argument here is on the registration of the property. And it's
Yeah,
registered inside of a public access system so everybody can access it and see whose stuff belongs to who. You have
under
100
duress.
times better of a chance of regaining your property or having some type of compensation back for it under a registered system than it's something without any registration whatsoever. Good luck on getting your shit back if you don't have any
Did you have a
registration.
choice, though? But did you have a choice
Hold
in the
on,
matter? No, you
Dicelo.
were forced. You were forced under duress.
No,
Dicelo, I
you
got a perfect
chose.
example. I registered my car, right? And then I went out on the road. And because it was registered, the policeman could take it from me. He could stop me from using it, and he could take it to a place that was undisclosed to me, and I would have to pay him to get back the very thing that I own because it was registered. So
That's because
explain
you broke
how
the rules that
that
you agreed to
is
follow.
good.
That's because you broke the rules that you agreed to follow. That has nothing to do with him having private right to be able to just come seize your shit.
But you're
That's
acting as if
that's
he had
essential.
a choice. You're acting as if he had a choice. No one has a choice, dude. You're forced into the system under duress, dude.
See,
There's
the whole
not like you agree.
registration
You're
thing
just saying
is
you agree.
about jurisdiction. If
It's
it's
not
not
under
registered
duress.
with them, they don't have jurisdiction. And if it is registered with them, they do. That's why they act.
I gotta
And
agree. The state of New Jersey took my
the
vehicle.
enacting force that's in power,
It's all
and they
about
would be
giving
the
jurisdiction.
ones that would help you get it back, then yes, you would want them to have information on the property. These are the same people that run the system on you getting the shit back.
I don't need help getting it back, bro. I'm a man, dude. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Bro, they took my truck,
So
dude.
then
I
we'll see
haven't
what
gotten it
happens when
back.
someone comes, robs your house, or steals your car. I guarantee you're going to call the cops. You're not going to go handle it yourself.
Nope. I'm not gonna sit there waiting for the cops, bro. That's why people own guns,
Right.
dude.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay. Sounds good.
But I'm sure you would rather have a license than a gun, right?
Dicelo's the man.
Let's take this to a different argument. How do you prove to someone else that this is your property? How do you go about that?
I'm here
There's a
for
couple of ways.
plain and simple.
One at a time.
Yeah, I'm here first. There you go. 9/10 of the law, possession. There you go. I was here first. I had it first. Like, pretty simple, bud.
Okay. Hold on. I've got a question for Dicelo. What's the other 1 part of 10?
He doesn't even
Admission.
understand that.
I don't know. Was it admission?
Do you not know?
Yeah, I answered. Could you hear me?
Did you say what? I didn't catch what you said. Sorry.
Admission, like your admission to whether or not it is or isn't.
No.
I mean, I could be wrong. What is it?
So
Documentation.
hearsay, basically. Hearsay is 1/10 of the law.
Okay. Obviously, you know the answer. Go ahead.
I mean, that's all I got, dude. Fill in the gap for me. Go ahead, man.
It's documentation.
Okay. Some formal
That's
documentation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
because of your
The bill of
standing in the
sale,
court of law. So your
the
admission
bill of
hearsay.
sale,
Yeah.
or what you have is if you were learned enough to have a private trust, you could have a record of minutes putting it into the private trust. You have the bill of sale, and you have the MSO or the MCO, which you get from the manufacturer after you get the bill of sale. All three of these things prove ownership. So there's three things outside of giving authority to your property that you can do to prove that it's your property.
Can bill of sales be faked?
Say again, Paul.
Yes, they can.
I didn't hear what he said.
Okay,
Say
so
again,
My
how
Paul.
would
my sick.
Hold on.
I can fake a
Two
bill
people
of
talking at
sale?
once.
How can I prove it? It's mine
Just
still.
start once over, Paul. I didn't hear what you said at the start.
I said, can a bill of sale be faked?
Yes, that's why they have to have the registration to match it.
There you go. So if you, as soon as you buy something, you register it with an organization or governmental system saying that this is my property. Then you have something within your possession and something outside of your possession that shows it's your property.
Yeah, but that's not what registration means. Define the term. Registration is giving up authority and giving rights, conveying rights over a piece of property to another party.
No, not
That's
necessarily. I mean, hold
that's
on a
what
second.
it is
All right.
in their system. We're talking government, man. We're
Well,
not
now here's
talking
the thing.
about you and me at home.
Hold
I've
on. I think
registered my
Carlos is right with
property with
that.
the government.
In government, the term registration means to convey rights from one party to another over a piece of property.
Can you show me that in a law? Can you quote some law somewhere in any state or
I
the
can show it to you in the CFR and in Black's Legal Dictionary. We can do it later.
Correct. So when you
I'm
look at
talking
your
about
car
this.
registration, you're the registered driver.
Yeah, but see, that's the misnomer, though, right? They think that they've registered it, and it's me telling everyone, the whole world, right, like a UCC1 public notice that this is my car. But that's not what it is. That's the fiction that people were sold. That's the fairy tale.
Well, hang on a
The
second though.
reality.
The title is another component to the car ownership, not just the registration.
The title. All right, so we go back to MCO, MSO. That is the allodial title. That is the highest title you can have. Anything other than an MCO is a short form of the originating title, which means someone has the original allodial, which means you only have privileges. A certificate of title is a short form of the deed or the allodial title to the property. It is a diminished status.
I thought everybody knew this already. I'm quite surprised we're having this conversation. I just want to.
I'm not.
Okay, yeah, I
Dude,
know
I
you're
do
not.
this
You're the
every
one
day of the
disseminating the
week.
information. I get that. You're disseminating it, which obviously means that you've had to do this in the past. But I just want to ask my panel, i.e. the guys in G+, was everyone in G+ already aware of this? What Cuddles is going through now? Nobody's even answering me in G+. I love it.
Well, I mean, I don't. I'll answer it. I don't.
Hold on, Paul.
In the UK, yeah. This is a novel state, isn't it? We're not even the owner. We're a registered keeper.
That was the term I was fishing for.
Yeah. So yeah, that by its very definition, even though we buy it, at the point of registration, we admit we don't own it. We're just keeping it on behalf of the state.
What was the question, Nathan?
But it's just, were you aware of the sort of ownership status when it comes to something like a car? So the example that Adam's just given, following on from mine, which was registered keeper, I said registered driver, I was just wrong with the terminology. But it's not explicitly made clear, but because of the arena we're in, this was one of the things I just pure by happenstance stumbled across and then did a bit of investigation on, and then realised that I was affirming things I already knew, and from what Adam's just said, based on how things are perhaps phrased in this country only, to allude to it, not explicitly tell you, but allude to it in a way that your average Joe might not get. I'm now finding out, because I thought everybody was just acutely aware of this, but obviously not.
Can you summarize the question
no.
in simpler form?
Did you know, for instance,
Yeah.
Tenth, that when you register your car, it's not yours? In the most simple terms.
No, not the way that they say the registration works. I'm trying to prove that is mine. That's at least what the feeling is when you register, that it's yours and nobody
Right,
else's.
Oh,
that's the
right.
fairy
Okay,
tale
hold
we
on,
were
Cuddles. Hold
sold
on.
when-
Hold on, Cuddles. Hold on.
Mm.
Okay. So that thank you for being so honest, Tenth. So you're justified, Cuddles, because it seems this is not common knowledge at all. And the misapprehension disseminated by Tenth is the reason that you're getting het up about this. And now I appreciate that. I'll butt out. But I just wanted to get... I'm a little bit surprised, as you can probably tell by my tone, that everybody here just didn't know this already. I'm just a little bit shocked.
No, I'm aware of talk about the person, the corporation, America's whole, blah, blah, blah. But these people who come out with this, I'm not saying Cuddles, but these people who put this thing out, they don't tell you in an easy, simple way what the answer, the workaround is. You got to read a lot of books, you got to do this, you got to do that. But it's like, okay, well, if all these things are the way they say, and it can't be used in another way, that you are a slave and all this, well, then tell us what to say and how to back it up. Getting the answer to the workaround has been crazy, because people say when a police officer stops you, don't say this, don't say this. You don't have to say this. It's like, okay, well, give me an instance, give me something that can back me up, but they never really finish it out.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, thanks button, and all that good stuff in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, the Adam Meakin, Refracted Curvature, Arwin, Chocolate Saying, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Morning.
Afternoon,
Hey,
everyone.
give me my bloody car back.
It's Thursday.
Yeah, we're not supposed to mention the day. These go out at various staggered points. But there we go. We are live, so I'll let you off. Okay, I'm going to do a quick plug. So I'm doing a fundraiser on behalf of Flatsoid at the moment. So thank you very much to the few people who've actually supported this so far. If you can chuck in a buck or two, that'd be really appreciated. I'm hoping that when I do things like this, a fundraiser for somebody else, because typically I do a lot for myself as well. I'm really poor. But that aside, when I do them for a third party, ideally what I'd like to see is people in the community chuck in a buck or two, a modest amount of money, but a lot of people supporting it, to just show sort of community spirit. So as much as it's great for me when I do genuinely need to buy something, like when my graphics card broke, a couple of people chuck me several £100s, which is fantastic, but it's not as good in the respect that it's also an exercise in community building when you can do these things for other people in your little neck of the woods, in this case Flatsoid, and there's been many others that I've done this for in the past. And it's always had the same result in terms of building a bit of community spirit. So, you know, Mitchell from Australia, Ranty when he was actually a flat earther, various other people that we've done GoFundMe campaigns for this reason. So yeah, please, if you haven't done so already, and there's been a few of you who have, so thank you very much indeed to all of you who have. If you can't, if you just totally broke, which I am, I'll be honest, share it, smash the share button and just click the Twitter, click the Facebook, send it to somebody else. They may want to contribute a few bucks to help Flatsoid get a decent streaming PC. I had another bash yesterday, which is the reason I'm plugging it again and will be until this is, you know, raised at least enough to get him a PC that can do this. I went and had another listen to his show that was going through the information in regards to McToon's submission of a flat plane. And I listened, and then it got to the point where the audio started going horrendous, and I was like, God damn, I really, really want to get him a good streaming PC, because this isn't right. It's just not fair. So yeah, as I say, I will be periodically going to this fundraiser throughout the live show, and hopefully a few of you might donate and you'll get a shout out on this live show if you do so. So indeed. The other thing I will mention, if you do donate, obviously this is not a free service from GoFundMe, but they do also ask if you want to give them a tip, so set that to $0 and then just add whatever amount it is you want to donate. You know, if it's a couple of bucks, that is absolutely brilliant, because it means that we can show, if 20 people or 30 people or 40 people will chuck in a couple of bucks, that there is that kind of community within Flat Earth. Obviously, I'm not appealing to the anti-flat earthers who'd rather shut this channel down and have Flatsoid die. You know, they're not the ones I'm appealing to. But yeah, like I say, I don't necessarily want people to just give me a wedge to then obviously just pass straight on to Flatsoid. I'd prefer if there was lots of you that actually chucked in a couple of bucks. That would be a much better sort of community building way of supporting this particular endeavour. So I will stick a link to it in the live stream chat as it's going by now. And as I say, I'll go back to it periodically throughout the live stream. So thank you for listening. Hopefully you all support GoFundMes that I do now and in the future for me or whoever else is I'm shilling for at the time. In this instance, Flatsoid, who is ace. So, any words on the Flatsoid campaign? If not, we'll move on to housekeeping.
I think it's a well-worthy cause, because I'd like to be able to hear him and understand him as well.
Exactly, he's a good guy, and you want to be able to hear what he's saying. It's good information until it isn't, and it isn't the information that's suffering. It's this crap phone that he's jerry-rigged to do a live stream with because he can't do it on his computer. It's like anyway, you'll get the general gist. It's catch-22 when it comes to these sorts of things. If you can't do a really cracking stream, people don't hang around to want to support you. That's just human nature. If I'm doing it and I'm the biggest advocate for Flatsoid, then everybody else is going to be doing it. And I'm not just saying that because I'm saying, oh, everyone does what I do. I just know how people behave when they come to YouTube videos with poor audio. It puts people right off. I must remind him to delete them. Just delete the ones that haven't got good audio, and just, you know, don't let them tarnish your reputation, because they will. Anyway, enough about Flatsoid. Hopefully you'll all support the cause, and it's not like we're asking for a massive amount of money. It's fairly modest. We've got a 550 quid target, so that it gets to about 500 quid after fees. Hopefully that's enough to put a second-hand PC together with a graphics card with encoding on it in the cheapest format, and that's basically all he needs. You can pick up a second-hand mic from Facebook Marketplace or whatever the equivalent is out in South Africa. But anyway, should we do some housekeeping, or is there any other comments? Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Hell no. Or you can't get an elevation bank from it.
Yeah, does celestial sphere model violate? It does. I was trying to formulate that in a way that was Yoda-like, because I've got me on screen saying refraction, geometry. It is not, and it isn't. We've been saying it for 2 years, but people are only just starting to cotton on. I really like it, by the way. All of you comment that the pennies just dropped. Please keep doing it. It really, really does make my day when someone comes along and goes, oh, so if the line's bent, they can't get in that. Yeah, Black Swan, yes, 2 years old. I don't say it in a way that sort of points out that, no, you should have got this by now. It's good. You're getting it. Go forth. Point out this to other people who say refraction. You know.
Hold on, wait a second. Wait a second. People are just getting it now? Oh my God.
Yeah, because of the elevation. It takes an instance where we say 2021, say, a year ago. You can't say refraction. It violates your geometry. And they go, no, refraction. You just haven't taken it into account. Nobody understands the implication until the implication is forthright in an argument. So, okay, so your line to the horizon's a straight line. No, it isn't. It's refracted. You told me that. You've told me that for 2 years. And then the audience goes, oh, so they can't do it anymore. No, they can't. No, they ruined their geometry, like we said, for 2 years. But there was no implication. There was no watching the geometry fail as a result of bending the line that needs to be straight for the geometric implications of a globe Earth with the horizon blocking your view. It breaks when they bend the line.
Well, that's to get an angle to the surface of a curved Earth. That's not an elevation angle.
No. Further to that, no, the argument has been expanded beyond that, but the implications of bending the line is all I'm discussing here. You're absolutely right. You need a flat Earth to measure the elevation angle in the first instance. Their models are made by way of elevation angles acquired from a flat plane. If you look up at the definition of any elevation angle, it's going to reference it to the horizontal plane you're standing on, because that's what the Earth is. Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chocolate. Was it Chocolate?
I was just going to say, just take the concession. They say refraction, they're talking about an optical phenomenon. They're not talking about geometry. They've left the geometry, ditched it.
That's
like
correct.
A bad habit.
So I've pinned the link to go to GoFundMe for Flatzoid in the live stream comments. So if you did want to chuck him a buck or two, I'd be very grateful. Show some community spirit and all that good stuff. It encourages others, shows we're all as one. Complete contrast to what I normally say in this regard. I'm a total hypocrite when it comes to e-begging for a third party. I have no morals.
I think it's a good time for John to go over measuring to versus measuring from.
And also, we should sing Kumbaya because we are all as one unit as flat earthers, and we all agree that here, don't we?
I'm going to vomit in a minute. This is the biggest turnaround. Nathan's flat earth community we've got now, haven't we?
Kumbaya, my lord. Kumbaya. Come on, everybody. Oh, no?
Kumbaya, my lord.
What did he say last time? There was a word he used.
Yeah, when it comes to a third party, if I'm e-begging on behalf of a third party, there's no limits, man. I don't care because I always got the get out. I'm not even e-begging for me. I'm doing it for Flatzoid. What do you want? So I've got every excuse to pull out all the stops. So yeah, but I did mean it. I wasn't actually joking. I don't want some of that to go under the whatevers because I've drawn light or made light of it. No, I mean that sincerely. I really do mean when I say I'd rather several of you chucked in a buck or two, literally just a couple of quid or a couple of dollars or whatever it is in your funny money where you live. Chuck in a couple of bucks and it shows community spirit. No, we do want, as a community, Flatzoid to up his game. And if it takes a couple of bucks from 20 or 30 people, then so be it. That's the way to do it. In my humble opinion. Now, when it's me, if you want to give me a huge wedge, go ahead. Get me to the target like that when it's me. No, when it's third party, no, community spirit. Let's all do this together. Let's put all in a little amount. You know what I mean? Anyway, enough making light of it. I don't want people to be put off by this discussion when it comes to supporting Flatzoid. Just give him a donation and let's move on with housekeeping.
Yeah, we just want his mic to stop sucking.
That's all this is. It's totally selfish. I just want to listen to Flatzoid. Therefore, this is how I'm doing it.
What happened to my question for John?
My bad. From and to John.
Well, if you're talking about the Earth curve calculator, they talk about getting an angle to a geometric horizon. But they got rid of that when they said refraction. But that's not the same as an elevation angle, because an elevation angle is from the surface. To and from, it doesn't seem like such a big deal when you're just talking to someone. But it makes all the difference. Because if you're talking to your eye to the horizon, as opposed from your feet across the ground and out to the sky, that's not the same thing.
Absolutely. And they try and hoodwink you with from and to, and when they do, they end up finding themselves with something they can't acquire anyway. Back in the day, they might have got away with this if the elevation angle argument had come up back in 2019 or earlier. Because they could have hoodwinked us. but now they can't, because when they draw a line to their geometric limitation, formerly known as Earth curve, that's a straight line they ain't got anymore. So they can't even draw a line to it. Meanwhile, as John's just pointed out, an elevation angle from a curved baseline is something you will never acquire, and when you're measuring in the vertical aspect based on the horizontal aspect you stood on, that's not to the horizontal aspect or to a curve. It's from the horizontal measuring in the vertical. That's what an elevation angle is. Excellent point, 10th. Sorry I rumpused it with such menial things as e-begging for Flatsoid. Subscribe today.
No, it's very important, because this is where they all hung up, misinterpreting what dip, or really height of eye correction, is. So when you understand what height of eye correction is, and you understand what John just said, then you say, oh yeah, it is impossible to get an elevation angle from a curved baseline. So it can't be a globe. It's that simple.
Indeed.
It can be a globe if you measure it flat first, because that checks out in 2022.
Well, no, it doesn't. That's John's point, isn't it? When you say that, it's no, it's the other way around. That violates the celestial sphere model to assert that it's a sphere when measuring it flat.
Oh, the people who don't really care about that violation, they just say it.
Or people who don't care about their geometry, proving Earth has a Earth curve edge. They'll say, oh, you don't understand refraction, and then start telling you about how refraction works. Phil's in the chat currently now telling us, oh, we've got 400 years of experience in refraction. That's fascinating. Meanwhile, your terrestrial refraction, bent line to a geometric edge you don't see anymore, violates any means of acquiring an elevation angle measurement to a curve when claiming you've got a tangent. You don't have that tangent anymore, it's bent. You're telling us how it's bent, and how we should know it's bent because it's been bent for 400 years, right? Well, that blows a load all over your geometry for a curved Earth, because you need a tangent point at the edge of your Earth. Phil.
There's also another golden nugget here that people should not overlook, and that's how many times have we been told, oh yeah, the Greeks and people before, they always knew it was a globe. Okay, well, let's take that at face value. The celestial sphere model is the flat Earth model, because in order to use the celestial sphere model, you have to assume the Earth is at the center, not the sun, and that the Earth is stationary. So if celestial sphere model has been used all this time, then you've used it with the assumption that the Earth is not moving and it's the center of the universe. Now what say you about the past and what people used to believe?
They still measured it flat. They still took elevation angle measurements. I mean, I can example a really early one with Al-Biruni. He measured the mountain flat too, in terms of getting the height of it. He had to have a flat plane to do that.
Well, it's a prerequisite. You can't get an elevation angle with a curved surface, so it's always been measured flat, from a flat surface. You can't do it any other way. That's the beauty of it.
How long's Al-Biruni? When's Al-Biruni in history? Anybody got a time? Date, rather. I'm going to have to look it up.
I used to know it. I can look it up.
I think it was 1720.
973 to 1048.
I've got it too, yeah, I've got the same. Okay, so they've been measuring Earth flat for 1,000 years plus, Phil. Al-Biruni was measuring mountains off a flat plane long before people were talking about refraction. He was measuring it flat 1,000 years ago, Phil. According to your nonsense history. Then we've got a diagram of Al-Biruni measuring Earth flat, just so we can put this on screen for the audience as we're discussing it.
What do you want, Nathan? Sorry, I was
Picture of Al-Biruni acquiring the height of the mountain, so we can show Phil that 1,000 years ago they were measuring it flat. They still are when they do elevation angle measurements or navigate or build anything.
I want to see proof of this guy Al-Biruni anyway.
Oh, I don't believe that. I'm just talking about their history
up.
and their narrative. I don't necessarily believe Al-Biruni even existed.
Well, no, he's got a good shoe line going on these days.
Don't get it. Not even going to ask.
The last Biruni shoes.
There it is. Thank you, Adam. Here we go. See if I can make this big as Adam brings it up.
They even say in stories about him that he didn't even know about refraction. They even admit it.
Oh, it's just a tiny little picture.
Yeah, it's crap, that, isn't it?
Can you find a better one?
I bet he's wearing a
There
dress.
it is on the left. There, that one. That's it. Here we go. God, this is painful. The power of live editing. Pretend this isn't happening. Pretend this is full screen. Right, I'm going to transition to as big as it can be anyway. Okay, this is obviously as big as Adam can make it for some reason. Unless my computer's crashed and I'm talking to myself. Here we go. So this diagram shows how Al-Biruni acquired the height of the mountain. He's using a flat plane to do it. 1,000 years ago, apparently. Thank you, Adam.
And then he goes up to the mountain and he looks at the natural sea horizon. And then he's got to do height of eye correction and bring his eyeball down to that same plane that he took the original measurements from.
So here it is on screen now on the right. So after measuring the height of the mountain with a flat line along the mountain, with him measuring out, getting two triangles to get the difference, to get the height, now he's got a curved line after he's gone up the mountain that he's measured the height of a flat plane. He's assuming that the line he got the height from is now bent, violating his first measurement. Needless to say, they still claim this triangle to a tangent point. By the way, Phil's just spent a prolonged period of time telling you how this line Al-Biruni's claimed to measure in the only bit that claims Earth's spherical. This line doesn't exist. They've known for 400 years how wrong Al-Biruni was when he took this straight line to the geometric horizon. 400 years they've known how long he was wrong in regards to this sphere bit and this straight line. Yeah? This is bent. Don't know how he's got a triangle. All right, Phil, 400 years we've known how wrong Al-Biruni was when he derived a geometric horizon to give him a radius. Yeah. The bit that he used for the flat Earth to get the height of the mountain, that's still used today, you know. Celestial navigation still uses it to move around on the plane that we're standing on. And Al-Biruni measured the height of the mountain with. Before he used this straight line that he doesn't have because it's been known for 400 years how bent it is. So it couldn't be a triangle. He was blagging that he got the radius when he bent the line under the mountain and used a bent line that was claimed to be straight by him. Hey, Phil, 400 years we've known how wrong Al-Biruni was with this sphere bit. Yeah, the flat bit with the elevation angle measurement of the height, yeah, that still works. Absolutely still works. This doesn't. Phil's debunked it. Bent line, right, Phil? 400 years we've known how debunked Al-Biruni's stupid R-value claims were. For radius 400 years. We've been refracted. Yeah, that's why the pennies drop, whoever was talking about this in the pre-show. Yeah, after 2 straight years of people like Phil telling us how refracted it is and them needing this straight line, people are starting to get it.
It would
Thanks,
seem
Adam,
like
for
Phil,
presenting.
there's never going to be a time where Phil gives us a straight line, ever.
And Virus has no problem saying, yeah, I don't have any problem with the horizontal.
We were talking yesterday, me and Chop was saying about the quality of what they bring. This is another good example. We're being very kind here, very kind indeed to reinterpret Phil's stuff to give it a little bit of sense. But his comment is, look, a band of scientifically illiterate people think they have undone 401 years of work on light since the law of refraction was first described. I don't think we're challenging that, Phil. It's the 7/6R that we're looking at. See, once again, he builds a false argument, which is just full of unsubstantiated ad hom. But more importantly, we're creating the argument for him because he's still not boldly stating what his refraction is in his model. His special 7/6R refraction. And that's all they've got. They've got no real arguments. Again, look, they've just got veiled insults and very, very poorly constructed arguments which can't tell the truth of their model because it's so laughable now. Little rant, sorry.
That's all right. You're right. I didn't point out the bait and switch because I didn't want to complicate it, but correct. He's talking about 7/6R terrestrial refraction, which is not the 400-year claim that the Al-Biruni straight line is using to measure the distance to the geometric horizon and derive an R value with that triangle after bending the line he used to get the height with. Well, you've got 7/6R bent line now, right? That's not refraction that we've learned about for 400 years. That's a bait and switch based on an R value that Al-Biruni is deriving in this instance and couldn't derive to give him a 7/6R value if the line was bent at 7/6 of the radius that you can't measure. It becomes paradoxical the moment you bend the line. Broken, bent, doesn't matter how you describe it, it fails upon bending the line to the geometric horizon they're claiming to prove as being a physical limitation to your view called Earth curve. I'm going to do another shout out.
Well, they had to do that.
They did have to. You're not wrong, Neil. They've got no
A
option.
question for Adam. A question for Adam. Adam, isn't this similar or the same trait as what they do with perspective? Like if you're under a star, you're at 90 degrees, it's directly over. And if you move away, it's 89, all the way down to 0. And they say with perspective, it's dropping lower in the sky. So they go convolute that and say, well, actually the reason is because the Earth curve is doing that rather than what I just said. Now, when it comes to refraction, it's a similar trait. They take natural refraction and try to say it's Earth curve.
Well, yes and no. One's just a misexplanation of what you're seeing, isn't it? In terms of just a misappropriation. So the Earth curve for perspective. Whereas that one is just wholly deceptive because he's saying there, he's talking about refraction, which we all accept is a thing. Yeah? But then he's completely not even talking about that in terms of the type of special refraction, 7/6R refraction that's needed to hold his model together because his model doesn't match reality. So we're not, or reality doesn't match his model, does it? Is his problem. So he has to have a special type of refraction, which has nothing to do with the refraction he stated.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you guys. I'm sorry to do this. First and foremost, shout out to Godzilla37, who says, "You guys remember the time that Phil told the truth?" ? I've responded, "No, Gord." He says, "Me neither," with a second super chat. Thank you very much for the support. Really do appreciate it, Godzilla. Also, I'm going to move over to the fundraiser we're doing for Flatsoid. I keep saying we. Yeah, why not? We are running a Flatsoid streaming PC fundraiser. And a big shout out, this is exactly what I was hoping to get, Mr. D. Watson for supporting the GoFundMe campaign, and also Michael Jones for supporting the GoFundMe campaign, and Ron Hunston. Thank you very much indeed for supporting this GoFundMe campaign. That's exactly what I was hoping to see. A few people putting... not even modest, $10 and $5, £5, I should say. Not a modest amount. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate the support. Hopefully we'll get him that much closer. If we could get up to $100 or plus $100 by the end of this live show, I'll be elated because it's only been running for a day. And sort of being, a good long away, 1/5 of the way or thereabouts would be brilliant. So yes, thank you very much to all of you who supported that GoFundMe campaign. Let's move on. Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Have you all gone on strike because I've been doing too many Flatsoid shout-outs?
What is the sun?
I don't know.
It was the word distance after the other day put me off answering.
How long are you in this flat earth debate? You still don't know what the sun is?
No, I still don't know what the sun is, Neil. That's correct.
I'll give it a go. It's a light in the sky, and no, we don't know the distance. Next question.
It's double the distance that if I was half the distance away, it would be halved. Or something like that.
Yeah.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Now, this one is a total joke. If you put a bucket on your head and put water in and swing it around, it proves what? That it's got sides of a container holding the water?
I never agreed with that demonstration. And I got sent to the back of the class when I questioned it.
Yeah, I remember questioning it at home. I don't think we got a physical demonstration of it at school. And I remember going home in my garden, filling up a bucket, spinning it around, and just thinking, but the water's forced up against the outside of the bucket. Meanwhile, gravity is claimed currently to be a pseudo-Riemannian force space-time medium that doesn't exist.
So they got rid of the bucket?
They got rid of anything in physical terms and took it purely to the mathematical conceptual idea of a fourth dimension. So there's nothing in physicality in terms of gravity in the current state. That changed 107 years ago.
So I could see young Neil in the classroom with some foresight saying, yeah, right now you think you got it. You're going to throw that bucket under the bus and take up some mathematics in the future.
Did you get mugged off as that as being gravity as kids? I don't ever remember being that.
Yeah, in the States we did, Adam.
I did, here.
No, it's centripetal forces, isn't it? It's
Centripetal or centrifugal?
Petal.
What's the difference?
One pushes you to the edges of the containment, doesn't it? And fugal throws you away.
So if you've got the gravity, so on the gravitron or whatever it's called, where you've got a cylinder that spins and you stand on the edges of the wall and it pushes you to the edge of the wall. If you've got something on the top of the wall, so you put your sandwich and your bottle of pop on the top of the wall, and then the ride starts. The force that throws the sandwich and bottle off out to the side is centrifugal force, and the force that pins you to the wall is centripetal force.
Let me read it. So the key, I've had to look at it. It's so long since I've been asked. Centripetal is real and pushing towards the centre of the circle. That's it, yeah? And centrifugal is fake and pushes away.
Say that one more time.
So petal pushes towards the centre, and then fugal is pushing away from the centre, but it's fake. Yeah, well, there's only centripetal, isn't there? Oh man, this is really old.
Hold on, what's
stuff.
going in? What force is going in towards the centre?
Right, so centripetal force moves inwards. So common examples of centrifugal force at work are mud flying off a tyre. And a major example of centripetal force is, oh, stop it, rotation of satellites around a planet.
I was going to say, it sounds to me like it's has it got any other,
I see what you mean. You gave an example of Narnia for the centripetal. Nothing goes inward as far as from what I can, like, what example do I have where something goes inward? I mean, because especially when you're spinning a bucket, it's definitely trying to go outward. It's just contained.
Yeah. Right. Centrifugal is the outward push that we experience on circular motion. Centripetal is the pull towards the centre in a circular motion. So I'm
exampled by.
It's not centripetal in a bucket. It's just centrifugal contained, isn't it?
Okay, so give me an example of centripetal force then, because I haven't heard an example. If you're going to talk about satellites in orbit,
it was satellites because they beg the question of orbits.
Yeah, we've had that. Okay, let's just debunk it then. Right, orbits is a begging the question fallacy right off the bat, assuming that satellites fall in a motion around a sphere Earth is a begging the question fallacy. Okay, so
let me speak real quick. The question was,
my God, I wasn't just in the middle of a statement or anything, Neil. Don't worry about it. You carry on.
I thought you were finished. Sorry.
Secondly, the realm that they're claiming this occurs in, so when you beg the question that items fall around a sphere Earth, you're assuming, two begging the questions, you've got them doing this in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum. So satellites in a Narnia region are falling around and described as falling around when describing it with the mathematics of pseudo-Riemannian force space-time, a medium we don't exist in. So that's a nonsense example. We don't experience it. Satellites don't fall in an orbital motion around a sphere, Earth, that we've assumed. No, none of that's true. Furthermore, it's not in a sky vacuum to be falling. So every bit of the aspects of orbit with satellites are debunked. We can debunk all of them. So that's not an example that exists in physical reality. Is there another one before we move on
Got
to
it.
Neil?
It's mechanics, right? So it's coming back, but it takes a while. Right. So if you've got a merry-go-round, we'll use the gravitron first. In essence, this is a merry-go-round on steroids. Anyway, when you go to the carnival and hop on the gravitron, you're experiencing the beginning levels of the force NASA uses to train astronauts. It's unbelievable the way they put stuff in. The only centripetal force at work here is the tensile strength of the metal that holds the rotor to the wall you're pinned against. So that's the mechanical description of the centripetal force there. So it's the centrifugal.
Hold on. They're saying that the mechanical bond between the wall and the spokes. So if you imagine the gravitron's a wheel, like a bicycle wheel on its side, spinning, and where the rubber tire is, you extend those up in a vertical motion. If the bike wheel is in the horizontal plane, we're going to now extend walls up from the rubber edge of the tire, and we're going to glue these walls to the tire and then spin it so that we can put little tiny puppies or kittens or whatever fits inside this bicycle wheel with walls glued to the side of the outside of the rubber. So there's a mechanical bond between the wall and the rubber edge of the tire. And in this description, it's saying that the bond between the wall and the spoke of the whatever it is, the rim of the tire, meeting at the central point, that's the only point in this example that gives a centripetal force. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the thing that's stopping you flying off. So the centripetal force will equal the centrifugal force, so you don't fly off. It can't be exceeded unless you snap the metal. So,
but that's where I was going to go to next. When you say you snap the metal, that means there's an excess of force against the outside direction that's actually occurring. But what's the inward force? The glue?
That's what it's classed as. That inward force is the counter force against the centrifugal. So in the case of like a standard merry-go-round, there's nothing keeping you on, is there? There aren't walls. So the only centripetal force is the friction between you and the ground, or you holding on to the bar. That would be the amount of centripetal. So if you span faster and faster, you couldn't equate the centripetal to the centrifugal and you'd fly off.
Okay. I got a picture of it.
Hold on.
So when you've got an orbit of a satellite, the gravitational centripetal pull equates to the centrifugal spin-off speed, so that's why it stays in orbit. Now I'm happy to be corrected by any baller out there, because it's years. That's like 30 years since we did that at school.
Hold on. So the centripetal force in this instance with satellites is described as the counteraction of the centrifugal force trying to throw it out of its gravitational orbital motion, and the contrast, the balance between that, the thing that's keeping it in that motion, against the gravitational force. Is that what you've said so far? Am I just correcting my summary?
Against the centripetal, which is the one to keep it in position. Which
but that's gravity in this example. But that's gravity, right?
In this case, be expressed as gravity as opposed to a bar or pin on.
Gravity's not a force, though, is it?
No.
So when it says that there's a counteracting force to create the centripetal force, which keeps it in equilibrium in an orbital motion, because it's counteracting the centrifugal force that in an orbital motion we assume when we assume a sphere Earth and things falling around it, is counteracted by a non-force. That's nonsense.
Nathan, I got a picture of it, the masterpiece, so the audience can get a visual.
It's Dr. Phil. Where's Phil when you need him? He should be battering us on this, because I'm literally just trying to remember it, because it's one of those nuances, isn't it? That's like a A-level physics question. You have to differentiate, but you don't really ever. Come on, Phil, where are you? Is that right? Is that how you keep your stuff in orbit? That balance?
But that balance is nonsense, because it's saying there's a counteracting force to a centrifugal force that wants to throw in this case, satellite out of the presupposed gravitational orbital motion. And it's counteracting the force that's pulling it inwards And that's there is no force pulling it inwards called gravity to counteract.
On screen now, look. Oh, it's just gone. But that last picture was exactly that. The gravitron whirler. So in this case, the thing that's stopping you spin off is the physical thing. So that equates to the centripetal, which equates to the centrifugal. But they're saying the thing that's doing it, that equalization, is the imaginary force of gravity that equates to the centrifugal you would have whizzing you off, like it's you not being able to grip on anything on roundabout. Yeah, there, look. So if you're on the outside of that, having to hold on, and if your arms will only give you so much centripetal force, and when that's not sufficient to equal the centrifugal, you fly off. But what they're saying then is that the gravity's equating to that.
Yeah. So the centripetal force in that example that Adam's just given is, if I'm on this whirly gravitron, whatever it is, and instead of being on the wall, right, hopefully you can all see my mouse, I've climbed up to the top, yeah, and I'm dangling on the outside when the machine starts. So when it starts whirling around, my legs are flailing out from the hub, pointing outwards, so my toes are pointing away from the hub, and I'm holding on with my fingers. So it's a bare knuckle ride, me trying to hold on against the force of this thing trying to throw me out with centrifugal force. And the description of centripetal force is to say that the ability of you and the muscles in your arms to hold on to this is the counteracting force to the centrifugal force throwing you off. Therefore, your grip is the centripetal force.
Yeah, and what's amazing with the picture is that this is really another sample of the water in the bucket over a teacher's head. The people inside would be the water inside the bucket, and if you put some water on the outside prior to spinning, would that water on the outside be pulled in, or would it fly off?
Well, they've got a description for that. It's the centrifugal force, but the contrasting force to the centrifugal force that's trying to not throw the splashes on the outside of the bucket away from the bucket, but the stuff inside the bucket being thrown against the wall, well, the force of the wall of the bucket keeps the water in. And the description of the force of the wall keeping it in is the centripetal force. Now, if you imagine you scale up the bucket but keep the plastic the same thickness, there's going to be a point where the weight of the water, the force of the water, breaks the plastic. What's that? The centrifugal force overcoming the centripetal force? Or the tensile strength of the plastic?
Yeah, that sounds about right. So as well, I'm understanding it, relearning it.
Wow, amazing.
Well, I'm sure the welder who put this together had to go through all that, right?
This started off with that question of, is there any scientific evidence for gravity? Something else that QE went over with Am I a South African, if that was his name, explaining the hoodwinking of science. That's why it was such a good debate. When he took him through the steps of how we've got pretender clowns out in the globe Earth arena that have asked us for years and years and years to give us scientific evidence of a flat Earth because they've got scientific evidence of a globe Earth, and that we must deny all science to be flat Earthers. So therefore, by implication, they're claiming they've got scientific evidence, and when we point out what science is, they haven't got any.
You want to hear what the ether guys have to say about the centripetal and centrifugal?
Fuck yeah, tell me, bro.
No swearing. Go ahead. Dice low. Or just
All right, I have the definition here. It says centrifugal divergence is the force. What's that?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
All right. It says centrifugal divergence is the force and motion vectors of magnetism towards the creation of magnitude and space as seen in fields, nature, growth, and nearly all natural phenomenon. Centripetal convergence is the inertia and acceleration vectors of the dielectric towards counter space. Also see the term vortex. And then he goes on to say real quick in another brief sentence, all of nature from macro to micro, whether phenomena and so on, form these inverse pressure geometries of simplex pressure mediation where force is either generated or canceled, but almost always mutually both simultaneously.
And this happens in counter space.
Well, no, he's saying that essentially the centrifugal divergence is magnetism's vector, and centripetal would be that of a dielectric vector, which is within the realm of counter space. I mean, dielectric, counter space are fairly synonymous.
I see. So in the realm of counter space, then that's what I said. Just yes would have been all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And counter space is real, obviously, right?
No, not in the sense of
So this is all just
real.
what's the word? Bollocks. This is taking place in counter space, somewhere that doesn't exist.
No.
Yeah.
See,
yeah, it is.
Most people today only deem something to be real that has some sort of a physical essence to it, a physical property. But not everything has this.
I see. So when we're dealing and defining in the physical realm of the world we live in, i.e., physics, you when describing on behalf of the whoever it is that you're describing it on behalf of, describe something that exists in a non-phys way, non-physics, non-physical. We should appreciate when doing physics that there's a non-physical aspect that we need to take into account called counter space that isn't real when we're describing centripetal forces and how magnetism manifests through counter space. No, we don't. In the same way, I don't need to take into account force space, pseudo-Harmonian space-time bending, because that doesn't exist either. Like counter space doesn't exist. Descriptions in mathematics, counter space or force space, makes no difference to me. It's not real. Neither are real.
Can I say something on it?
Is it scientific evidence of gravity? Probably not.
Well, there is none of that. It doesn't exist. But Dyslow just said, it's from someone else. It's obvious that the person who said that hasn't got a clue as to why the water stays in the bucket. The water stays in the bucket because as you spin around, if you hold on to a child's roundabout as it's spinning around, and what you will find is that you want to leave go because it wants to throw. Well, the roundabout doesn't want to throw you, but the force wants to throw you away from it. The reason the water stays in the bucket because the water is trying to come out the end of the bucket. You leave go of that bucket, and where is it going to go? It's going to go away from you at an angle. Look at shot put in track and field. Is it shot put that when they spin around, when they spin around with the weight on the end of the rope or whatever. The hammer. That's what it wants to do. The man who wrote that is lost in complexity and nonsense. It's nothing to do with magnetism or anything else. It's got to do with the weight that's within it. The weight wants to move away from its center.
I don't think that the two are commensurate with each other. We were talking about centrifugal and centripetal forces as they're understood. I think what they've done there in terms of the way a magnetic field is behaving is use those terms. So one with it going one way, then in counter space coming back. So the centripetal is the coming back. That's just a similarity of the underlying meanings of centripetal, I think, but used in two. One is a force that we're talking about in the physical mechanics of stuff, and one is just using the word centripetal to describe the direction of the field in its return inwards on itself. I don't think they're conflating the two or trying to say that latter one was an explanation of what we were talking about.
Isn't it interesting that there's a whole flat earth faction that have a directly comparable medium that doesn't exist, that creates a force that doesn't exist, described within magnetism, where there's a force that doesn't exist from a medium that doesn't exist. Obviously, you can think of it as a force that comes from heliocentrism. It's so interesting that these two things parallel so beautifully. I wonder why.
Well, to Brian's point, and to what Adam said after reading it, the centripetal force would be visually the arms of a person holding on to the graviton ride who was stationed on the outside as the ride started to spin. So his arms are holding on, but his legs, like you said, are flailing out. And if centripetal force is equated to the strength of the man or woman holding on, what's that, a grip? I mean,
it's like a chair. If you imagine you sat on the back of a pickup truck and someone accelerates, the tailgate's open, you're sat there, you're caught by surprise, you get thrown out the truck, right? And someone comes along, some smart ass, oh, that's the centrifugal force that's thrown you out. And you go, oh, if only I had something that had a high centripetal force rating. What about this chair in the front seat? Would that do? Oh, yeah, that's marvellous. As we accelerate now, I push against the chair, and it's got a very high centripetal force rating. So it counteracts all of the available horsepower. Therefore, this chair's got a 900 horsepower centripetal rating, because I still push against it no matter how much the car accelerates.
Well, it's just natural that the water wants to go out the end of the bucket. The water has weight, and if you spin weight around, it wants to move away from the center. It wants to spread out from the center. From the center point of the spin.
Just move it fast.
I look at it like a finger skater, where they do those twirls, and when they bring their arms out, they slow down, and when they bring their arms in, they speed back up. That's kind of how I see it.
That's just magic.
That's retention of angular momentum.
Oh, finger skaters are magic. Okay.
Yes. Any single
Is there any exertion of muscle? If you ask the figure skater as they brought their hands in, did it come in by some force, or did they have to use muscles to bring it in and keep it in?
That would be the second one. Angular
using the
momentum. Just because you're going sideways.
They use their muscles, but ultimately that was because they drank Gatorade and it's high in centripetal energy.
You are giddy today, aren't you?
Is that in counter space, Nathan?
Well, the Gatorade was.
It's kind of like the water in your shower. How it all hits the shower floor and goes down the drain in this circular vortexual motion. That would be the centripetal aspect of the motion. Whereas the water coming out of the shower head would be centrifugal. So you have centrifugal divergence, and you have centripetal convergence, where things are going out and away and coming back together and coalescing upon themselves. This is what it's
spinning in your shower head.
Yeah, nothing in the shower head.
Well, it's an analogy to explain these two things: centrifugal.
That's called a drain.
Centripetal.
That's called a drain.
Yeah, no shit. It's called an analogy.
Yeah, but it's a poor analogy. The drain isn't spinning. The water takes on a spin as it goes down towards the end.
Why is that? Why is the water spinning in this vortexual motion?
It's because of how the drain is made. That's what causes the water.
This is the point I think I was making.
So the drain has.
We've got just one sec, because I think this is the point of confusion that's occurring. That we've been talking about forces, and this is forces in relation to circular motion and what effects that have. Now, what's occurring here with what you're talking about drains, and I think what was being alluded to with electromagnetism, is to take the pedal and fugal points of it and the implied directions of, and apply it to the flow of water in a drain. It's a centripetal movement, yeah? And it's a centrifugal coming out the other way. It's got nothing to do with what we were talking about, but it's the hijacking to become descriptive. That's the only link these two things have got.
Alrighty then, let's move on. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or what's the one that you got wrong, Adam?
It was
cosmology.
It's
Astrology.
cosmology is no longer there.
No, not astrology.
Astrology.
Well, it's on the poster.
I ruined that by asking you
Astrophysics?
which one you got wrong, which completely ruined the whole thing. I'm sorry.
Astronomy,
Yeah, it's because of you,
astrology,
Nathan. It's
or
because of you that the
astrophysics.
Globe Light Tour failed. It's because of you. No, just kidding.
Alrighty. Go ahead, Adam.
Astronomy, astrology, or astrophysics is. the
No,
way history
astronomy,
will remember it.
cosmology, or astrophysics, not.
No, Darwin. What's on the poster is the way it'll be remembered.
What's on the poster is the way it will be remembered, Darwin.
Yeah, but the poster's on average going to be seen less than people are going to hear on a daily basis for years and years and years, the way it's asked during the housekeeping questions.
Nah, you don't know how many people had eyeballs on that poster.
I'm going to keep correcting you every time you say it wrong.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astronomy?
Never, never, ever. It's impossible because all those fields have an entire medium they presuppose per default, and
not
thus we could
science.
never have a viable hypothesis out of that.
In the first place, they don't meet the requirements of what they would need to be called science. So it's impossible to have a viable scientific hypothesis from those fields. They're pseudoscience by definition.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Well, of course that's possible,
Of course.
but they don't have any. They only got a drawing.
Would that require the Earth to be a globe?
Yeah, core at the centre of a sphere Earth, yeah.
Are we assuming volcanoes are
Question
fake?
number one, then.
Oh, here we go.
Or you would have to think of it as a globe.
Hold on. Dice Low, she said, are we assuming volcanoes are fake? What makes you think that volcanoes have anything to do with the molten iron core in the heliocentric model, first off?
I don't know. Doesn't volcanoes spew molten hot magma, which is consistent of what's claimed to be at the center of the core?
Yes, and
I mean,
no.
surrounding the nickel iron core, so to speak.
No. So
Wow.
current rhetoric from heliocentrism is that you have plate tectonics, and at the friction points, namely the ring of fire, they cause pockets of molten iron to bubble up to the surface because of the friction between the plates. So it's because
No, it's not molten iron. I mean, seriously, volcanoes don't leave behind slacks of pure iron.
I meant to say lava.
That's not true.
I went correct. Just get that out of the way. I meant to say lava. The friction heats the rock. The rock melts into a liquid at the friction points of the plates. So it's tectonic activity at the ring of fire that creates all of the volcanic activity according to heliocentric doctrine currently. It's sod all to do with little tubes that go from the centre all the way up. That isn't the case.
Yeah, dude, if volcanoes were actually spewing out iron, then...
Okay, you're going to labour that.
They would not be available because the iron mining companies would own all the volcanoes then.
It's just a misspeak.
Just like
I know, but it's still related to the molten iron core. That's where the misspeak came from, of course.
Nathan, you led him perfectly.
Very good. Yeah, but ultimately, that's a fairly common misapprehension that in the heliocentric model, I keep saying in the heliocentric model because there's no way I buy this. I don't know that's the case. Anybody else know that tectonic plates even exist?
Not in the way that they're described, no. We know there's areas that move, have
Right, they shift.
and cause, yeah. But no, I don't think we've been deep enough to verify that, have we? So...
Right, they're shifting, but there's no proof that it's actually laying on top of some liquid state material and that it's like floating on top of it. That's what they suggest, and that is totally unproven. But shifting of the ground, yes.
Where's the magma coming from, Arwen? From these volcanoes, like What's
Good
your
question.
answer to that?
Good question. I don't know. I doubt
It's coming from deeper in the ground and probably because of a combination of pressure and other unknown factors, which might be electric even. But
doesn't know
something
either.
is melting these
He hasn't
pockets.
got a clue. He hasn't got a Scooby-Doo. Doesn't know. He's just speculating, which is fine. But we don't know. But the current rhetoric says it's tectonic activity. Hello, John. Hello, QE.
Hello. We needed you earlier.
Well, he needed breakfast probably.
And
Think for yourself.
We are holding a fundraiser for GoFundMe Flatsoid streaming PC at the moment. So I've spammed the chat. Check it out. Hopefully you'll support it in, modest amounts, lots of you, rather than a couple of you with big amounts. That would be what I would hope for. Thank you to everyone who's supported it so far. Hopefully you can all see the link going by in the live stream chat, and you'll support GoFundMes that get people decent streaming PCs. So shout out to Flatsoid. Hopefully we'll get you there, mate. It's only been a day so far, so early doors.
I got a question for you guys, slightly moving away from the housekeeping questions, but what level of pressure and or heating chemical or whatever would be required in order to turn regular solid rock of different compositions into molten lava? Because it must be an incredible amount of energy. Where is it? How is that even calculated?
We don't know. All we know is the current
That's why I'm
claims.
asking.
We don't know. You don't know. What makes you think I would know? What we know is what they tell us, and
Well,
I don't
can't you
necessarily believe
calculate
what
it?
they tell us.
Can't you calculate it through chemistry? Just how much heat it would require for a solid rock to
Adam's
melt
a
like
chemist.
that?
Ask Adam.
He's here, isn't he?
What's going to
I'm
conserve
not
that
a
energy?
volcanologist, am I?
A volcanologist? Is that what it's called? Volcanology?
Yeah.
Isn't that a Trekkie thing?
No, it's study of volcanoes.
And that's a volcanology.
As long as we all live long and prosper, it's all that matters.
I'm just 1300 degrees Celsius, between 600 and 1300 degrees Celsius, according to Google, Arwin. It's the best stuff I can give you.
Is that the temperature? Because I think it would require a lot of
Depends on
energy
the rock.
insertion to actually get it to melt, right?
Well, no, and pressure. That's in their model as well. Yeah, you've got great pressures as well. So,
but does pressure actually melt rock?
yes, in their model, and yes, in reality, yeah.
But really, in reality, so if you take like a massive hydraulic press that's like insanely powerful, you put rocks in there.
You've not seen Superman. How does he make Lois Lane's engagement ring?
Just crushes it. Just crushes it between his hands. Selects a nice bit of coal.
No, but seriously, can it happen? Has it actually been demonstrated for rock to be pressurized so heavily that it would literally turn to lava? Has that ever been done?
Yeah. You can...
How do you know it was? How do you know it got melted? How do you know it didn't start off like that?
He's got a good point. We're making
Screw you.
He's pointing out that we've made an assumption, and now we're trying to explain something that occurs based on our assumption. And Brian's pointing out, well, how do you know that what's happened is you've started with rock and it's been squashed or been brushed together through friction or whatever means, and then become molten? Brian's saying, oh, how do you know it started off molten? How do you know that there isn't shield or whatever?
If it wouldn't start out like that, then that means it would run out. Like either it has to be recreated, something rocky has to melt and turn to lava, or all the lava just runs out. And then when it's run out,
Runs
it's
out
over.
of where? Where does it run out?
Well, if it doesn't run out, then
that's what he asked.
how is it made?
I love it. He subverts the question beautifully.
If it doesn't do that, that's not what I asked, is it? We don't know
lava
anything
doesn't run
about
out, does it? I mean, there's lava and volcanoes that keep on coming. So let's assume because of that, we can strongly infer that means that new lava is created somehow. Because there's lava coming out and then solidifying. So that means there has to be material forming to lava.
I do know this one, Arwen, actually.
okay.
See, under the sediment, there are still existing polonium people. They're breeding.
I knew it was going to be a joke.
You
Right.
always do this.
Brian said it. I've
The
said it.
actual
Hold on,
serious
everyone stop.
questions, and then
Please,
you all have to
please.
mock
Owen,
it.
please. Brian said it. He said it at the beginning of his statement. We haven't got a Scooby-Doo. We don't know, do we? Now, you can speculate all day, Arwin. That's fine. I don't mind. But I'm just saying we really don't know. And I'll say it again, although I got rumpus twice. All we have is the current rhetoric that they claim is the cause. And the cause is tectonic activity at the Ring of Fire and the pressure and heat that's generated by the friction of the tectonic plates moving. That creates little pools that get pushed up through pressure to evacuate from beneath the ground. That's the current rhetoric. Now, do I believe it? No, because I don't believe anything they tell us anymore in that regard, unless they can demonstrate it in some meaningful way, which I don't feel they've done. But beyond that, and I want Brian to say it because he's already said it once and got rumpused, we don't know.
Well, fine. We don't know.
You're not Brian.
Let's speculate.
Oh my God.
Well,
you're not Brian.
that sounded like Brian.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Hey, may I say one?
Before this gets
Nobody wants to hear
Go ahead,
the
guy
truth.
from Discord, then Brian. Brian will get an uninterrupted outro. Go ahead, guy from Discord.
Somewhat related to the thread. The idea that, from what I can tell, the definition of a scientific theory is simply a structured explanation based on a set of facts, right?
No.
So,
Right,
No.
you failed. Go on, Brian. You can do the outro, and then we're going to ask everyone to stay tuned if they're watching on after show. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, yeah, we haven't got a clue what's happening underneath the ground, and you can speculate about it all day. That won't give you any proof. Thanks, Nathan.
My pleasure. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, then this is where we bid you farewell. Another huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and I will remind you that we're running a GoFundMe campaign for Flatsoid's new streaming PC. So I've put a link in the live stream as it's going by. I'll pin a link in the comments after the live stream's finished. So yeah, if you can all smash a couple of bucks his way, that would be really, really appreciated. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
You can't prove blah blah blah, then blah blah blah.
It only exists in your head.
That's not what I said.
But it's based on
never
facts.
reverted
That's
blah-de-blah.
that's my only point.
I'm sorry, Brian. I would never argue against blah-de-blah. That's just unheard of.
No, they're forgetting who you are. You could do these things because you're Baldwin.
How do you know that the lava?
I'm not Baldwin.
How do you know that the lava doesn't exist only when we see it? We don't know that either.
Because that would counter material logic in general.
Oh, really? Well, what about Hawaii? Have you seen the pillow lava comes up under the water? Have you ever seen that, Arwin?
Yeah.
Well, it's literally land being created before your very eyes. Not only is the land created before your very eyes, it becomes the most fertile land imaginable. Isn't that amazing?
I know. So there's land being formed by lava. That would automatically, through logical inference, imply that lava is continually forming because there's lava coming out and forming land, not being lava anymore. So where's the lava coming from? It must be forming. This is basic rudimentary logic.
No, it is
Well,
forming.
there goes your rectangular
Isn't
looping model.
lava matter?
What the hell does that have to do with rectangular?
If I was to apply that logic, Owen,
It's just this low blow. Stop it. I'm actually trying to be real
chill
here.
out,
I'm
Owen.
sorry.
Stop taking this so bloody
So,
personally.
hello.
Nobody's attacking you personally. Chill out.
I
Owen,
agree with you,
so
Arwen.
with that
It makes you
logic,
feel better.
if we take lava as that example, then I would say crude oil would be a fair analogy. There's a finite resource of crude oil. If I'm going to draw an analogy to something,
Is it? Hold on a
real world.
second. Hold on.
No, it isn't.
Stop, Arwen. I got there first.
Wait, let me.
It's
come
a
on.
renewable resource.
Let me finish. Yeah. So the way I'm told, it's a finite resource within this model. Yeah, that we have that sits with this. Now, within their model again, it's a finite resource. So unless we're just going to say God will replenish or the Creator replenishes these things, we're going to have a physicality assumption bias. Yeah. Even if it's an virtually infinite amount, we've got a reservoir under there, would be the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. What's wrong with just accepting that? I don't need to worry how much is there left. Is it going to run out? As far as I can tell, there's a more than infinite supply for whatever purposes there is. Yeah.
Okay. So let me respond to that. Does that infinite supposed stuff have a volume? And if things are
Hold on,
coming... No,
Adam.
I want to respond now.
Hello, can you all shut up? I want to hear Arwen's response. Go ahead, Arwen.
I hadn't finished. The point was, so why do I need to differentiate between a reservoir, which is happening, or something that's being made, adding in a whole new concept to this thing of formation? Well, why is that necessary? That was a very long-winded way of getting to it, but that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, because they're volumetric consequences. That's why. If something is getting out, then that means the volume goes down, unless it's replenished somehow. If it's just a reservoir and it's running empty, that means all the land will keep sinking as volcanoes erupt. Roughly.
Yeah, but
It sounds like
Can we all just acknowledge what Arwen said? Because he's got a really good point.
Something cannot come from nothing. So Arwen is logically right.
Exactly. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, Arwen's correct. So further to what Arwen's saying, what do we generally experience? Well, we generally experience things in a cyclical motion, don't we?
Right. So look, it couldn't be cyclical in all kinds of ways. Maybe the dirt is sinking into this reservoir and then heating up to become lava, right? Now there you have a cycle. But it is a cycle that includes the formation of lava from non-lava. And then it becomes a cycle.
Yeah. Well, you might have a point. We don't know either way.
Slight regression. We should...
Go on.
But why don't we see a slight regression in the amount of lava being generated? Like, there has to be some sort of an energy force creating that conversion from matter to lava and back and forth again without any form of regression, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
That's a good point.
Does that?
No, not ether. Electric energy, probably.
Why does that have to be?
Because otherwise, if it's just a natural radiation heat, then it would die down over time.
And you understand how it's made, do you?
Because what you're saying is
well, are you saying that lava? Sorry, are you saying that lava temperature is slightly going down?
Can't have three people
time?
talking. I need to take control. No, Adam's got Owen on the ropes. Die slow. Just let them thrash it out for a minute, please. Go ahead, Adam.
I just want to say one quick sentence, dude. Is that cool? Perpetual energy. That's what
Adam's literally just got Arwen on the ropes, and you do want to ruin it regardless. I've now got to get Adam to repeat his point because there's enough distance put between it now. Thank you so much, even after I asked you not to do that. Adam, can you repeat your point so Arwen can respond to it again? Thank you.
Well, I was making the point, how do you know there's not other process involved? That it is a cyclical process. How do you know all these things?
Natural consequences, inference, and the laws of logic.
Okay, so do the laws of logic compensate for a whole new additional mechanism outside of your purview?
Yes.
They do.
Do they?
The laws of logic allow you to know something you don't know.
Yes, just like we know there is a container, even though we can't touch it. We know it has to be there. That's inference through laws of logic. And the second law in this case. But that's
Can I-
basically what it is.
No,
Can I-
it's not,
can I
hold
make
on,
a-
hold on. I've got to address that because
Not
Arwen's making something
acceptable.
non-comparable. We're not suggesting an ever-increasing amount of containment. That's not comparable. And you rumpused Adam pointing out
cyclical.
how you fail as well.
But we're talking about a cycle, right? Well, how can you know that it is
No.
a cycle when we can't see it? Well, we can
didn't say we know
logically
that.
infer
That's
it
not what we
because
said.
it has to be a cycle. Otherwise, there would
That's
be
not what we said. We didn't say it has to
progressive
be.
situations happening. But I
Arwen,
can't
stop,
finish my
stop,
sentence. Oh,
stop.
stop! I'm only in the middle of a sentence.
What? Why you strawman the living shit about us, saying that it has to be a cycle when we haven't said that? You think you should go on indefinitely strawmanning us? We didn't say that.
He did.
My
You
point
said
is,
cyclical. You did say.
He did say that, Nathan.
how do you know it's a cycle?
Don't know.
How was I?
Because
Postulating
there
it
is
might
no
be, isn't saying... Arwen,
Okay, I
please.
can't answer.
Arwen. Postulating that it might be, prefacing it by saying we absolutely do not know, is not him saying it is cyclical, which is what you've just started to attack. That's when I said stop, because you were attacking a straw man. It's not what he said.
I'm asking again, how do we know it's a cycle or it's not supplemented by something that's not within our knowledge?
I can only answer if I can actually answer and not be interrupted by Nathan halfway of my sentence.
Let's just recap then. You got to the point of saying via logic. And I said, how can you use logic to deduce something if you don't know about the thing? How can you, logically, you can't use logic if you're unaware of it to use the logic on it.
Do I really need to answer that? I mean, we're in a system. We're in a system. It is working on cycles. Everything in our physical existence is based on cycles.
System
What
cycle
else can it
bias.
even be? If it's not
System
I'm not
cycle
done yet.
bias.
I'm not done yet.
We
Why
heard the
does
joke.
everybody keep interrupting me? Right? So
there was
if
a joke
it's
to be
not a
made.
cycle,
'Cause there was
if
a
it's
joke.
not a cycle, then there would be a logically measurable progression that would indicate it's not a cycle because things get asymmetrical. Are they getting asymmetrical? Is the temperature of the lava
False
dying down?
dichotomy.
Is there a sudden heap up of material?
False dichotomy.
No, that's not a false dichotomy. It's not even
Yeah,
a
it is,
dichotomy.
because he said, how do you not know it's supplemented?
I explained. I just explained that. It's a direct answer to the question.
Could the supplementation give
right,
you
because water
whatever you're
volcanoes
giving the
erupt
same
multiple
results?
times.
Arwen, could any form of unknown supplementation provide the same results that you're applying the logic to give you the suggestion that it's cyclical?
Well, an unknown supplementation would be a cycle. That's the whole point.
No.
We don't have to know what the supplementation is. We just know things aren't growing asymmetrically over the course of the entire history of the world.
No, there's no cycle whatsoever. It's a decaying process that's supplemented. But because it's supplemented beyond your knowledge, it would appear to be cyclical. But outside of the process, which we admit, we couldn't describe that cycle right now.
That's very wild speculation that for me goes into the territory of astrophysical thinking. So I'm not going to entertain that.
There's no speculation whatsoever in my statement. My statement was solely based on recognizing what we do and don't know.
What I know is that everything known is cyclical in this realm. So if you're going to suggest there's this magical exception that's just sort of making it seem like it's not, like it's a cycle, that is just beyond science fiction mumbo jumbo preposition to me.
So the energy from the sun.
So I'm not suggesting magical mumbo jumbo. I did say at the beginning, a reservoir so big that the timescales that we're talking about, we wouldn't be able to tell whether it's cyclical, a magic system behind, or just a huge reservoir. But if it is just a huge reservoir, there is no cyclical process. We're just burning the resource. Would we differentiate that?
We would be able, because we're still in a contained realm, and we would always have the material consequences of a reservoir that is a limited volume and that does not refill itself. We would notice. We would notice by the height. We would notice by the shape of the land. We would notice
And
in
what would
all
we
kinds
what
of
would we
ways.
notice? So if it was a reservoir or if it was a cyclical thing, what would be the differences in the shape of the land, the height of the land?
Well, things would continually keep sinking everywhere
Would they? Why would that be?
because the reservoir is running out
Is that
and is
because you
transformed into other material, the rest of the material that is filling up the realm, like gases and surface stuff.
and that's how you've imagined that process working. Have you got any evidence for that?
Well,
Logic,
that's what
bro,
happens
logic.
with material. That's what happens with all material. It all ends up just in gases and other stuff on the surface.
Have you got any evidence that in relation to the mechanics of the earth and volcanoes?
Yeah, volcanoes spew out a lot of gas on record.
No, that's
so,
not.
Yeah.
No.
Yes,
that's
I do.
That's not evidence of cyclical nature or.
That's not evidence?
No.
How is that not evidence? It's a literal, officially recognized example. Volcanoes spew out gas. Where do you think that gas is coming from? From the presupposed reservoir? Well, it's coming from there. Whatever there is, it's transforming into gases. If it has a finite volume, that means you're going to notice the volume changing. And that is how.
I've got to step in again.
I think Owen's got you
Guy,
here.
hello.
No, cycle
Just one
bias.
sec.
Oh my
Just one
God,
sec.
Neil.
Just one sec. So again, I've got to step in for the same reason I did last time. I'll try and do it more calmly this time, Arwin. Adam isn't supposing a presuppositional reservoir. He's trying to illustrate the unknown and giving you an example. He's not in any way suggesting that is the case. He's trying to get you to recognise your inability and all people's inability to take into account all of the unknown in this particular example. And then saying, with a postulation of, what about this as an unknown entity, just as an example? But you're taking that and using it like he's actually suggesting there's an unknown reservoir by presupposition. He's not doing that. You're just not quite picking up what he's putting down yet.
I take it back. Adam's got you.
So you mean that basically this entire inquiry is only to make me say, yeah, I don't know about what I don't know. Is that all you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, if you like. If you like.
Oh, right. So you just wasted my time then on my actual
it's a
effort to
valuable
figure
exercise.
out cosmogony of what there really is.
No replies allowed. Triggered rhetorical questions that aren't rhetorical.
Yeah, it was a non-stop sentence. I wasn't finished yet. You responding in the middle of my sentence is not rumpusing over you, okay?
Do you want to hear why?
Arwin, what are you guys so excited about?
Arwin's using logic.
The reason I did it was to reiterate the point that Brian made.
Oh my God, die slow.
Okay, that's why I did it, Arwin, to reiterate the point. It was worth going through, right? And the point I agree with that of all of this was the one Brian ended the show with. Yeah, I ain't got a clue. Now I can use all the knowledge of the real world that I've got. I can't apply it to construct some kind of model, however valid it might be in my own head. I can't justify it to another person. So I'd stick with I ain't got a clue. All I do know is hot and it's rocky that comes out.
Well, I do not settle for that level of knowledge. I like to go a little further, and I was trying to do that.
Demonstrate that you have no more than that. You've just got conjecture. That was the point. It's a bit of humility, mate.
It's okay.
It's not picking on you.
What's wrong with conjecture?
Okay,
what
nothing
is
wrong with conjecture.
Am I trying to make a scientific statement here?
No,
you just
nothing
said
wrong with conjecture.
More knowledge. And then I said that's conjecture, and you conceded it's conjecture, not knowledge. So that's the point.
We said we're going to
not
speculate,
knowledge.
man.
That's why
We're
you
speculating.
Conjecture does lead to knowledge because
No,
at
it
least
can do,
you're
not
trying.
necessarily. It also leads to confusion, doesn't it? And people thinking the Earth's a ball.
Well, conjecture does lead to knowledge because if you don't do anything, you don't get the knowledge. You have to go through conjecture before you figure out knowledge.
He said it also can lead to confusion as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that can happen. Yeah. Attempts can fail. but no attempt always fails.
He's
Well,
shown
we're
an
not talking about not speculating ever.
No,
That's
we're
not
not.
the point. The point is you don't have knowledge. You're not going to attain knowledge from just conjecture.
I disagree. It's the first important step.
In the
try and
scientific
figure out
method,
what's going on.
let's not equivocate. No, if you're observing a natural phenomena and then speculating what causes it, you can imply that, but that doesn't translate into general speculation. And I've had Die Slow trying to interrupt constantly, saying he's using logic, and then once we actually get to labour the point, moreover, Adam got to labour the point, and you made a concession. Now, the interruptions change from Die Slow to, we're allowed to speculate. Like, what happened to you barking logic through the middle of that conversation, Die Slow?
He's speculating using logical inferences. You shouldn't berate him for that. We're trying to find answers, and in doing that, you're going to have some roadblocks and hiccups along the way, and it's a matter of getting back on track and finding the logically implied mechanisms as to which that we can never necessarily validate, but at least have some formal understanding upon it.
I don't know. I see that as quite dangerous.
I agree.
I think. Hold on. I understand and I appreciate what you're saying, and I empathise. But that is also what's manipulated by the powers that should not be that rearrange our reality. Because you desire an answer. Because Arwen's saying, no, that's not satisfactory. I thirst for more knowledge in that regard. And that thirst might actually inspire people to go out and investigate and figure out the answers. Now, because of that thirst, the powers that should not be quench it with nonsense. And that's where Adam's overriding point is, I've allowed it to be laboured to this degree because it's important to understand where we're manipulated. That's where I want this to go. I know Adam's maybe not got that overriding point, but I have. Your thirst to know what's what leads you to having a sky vacuum because someone can just tell you and infer it through what they call logic.
I hope you're not talking to me.
I'm not. Of course not.
Okay. Well, because you said you're in this case, I don't have that, right? I'm not being manipulated by that anymore.
I realise.
I'm trying to just construct
I've said no.
the reality.
Oh, God, he's going to go on. Bloody martyrism now.
Arwen, what is rock and metals or steels in their tiniest, most macro form? What are they?
What?
What is rock and steel and metal and that in its macro form? What are they? What are they in a macro form?
What do you mean macro form?
Yeah, what are they in a macro form when they're at their tiniest? What's what is it that comes together to create these things?
Micro.
Tiny dust?
Yeah, but it can be smaller than that. What creates the dust?
Well, at some point it can't get any smaller because the surface tension will not allow it to split up further.
I think he's asking at a chemical level, Arwen.
I don't know. Ask the chemist. I'm not a chemist.
You're talking about magnesium and iron in their simplest form. Is that what you're trying to drive him to? Just lead him a bit.
Yeah, well, I just say my point. The point is that all these things, big, hot, whatever they are, they all come from a very, 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 very minute form. And where does that come from?
I'm sorry, you're
so
already
we don't
digging
know.
in
We
presupposition
don't even know
rounds.
if that's a cycle.
There is a story for it, though, just to quench that thirst, which I'll get to in a minute. But go on, Arwen, sorry.
I'm just, I don't see how that is relevant to what we were talking about.
Oh, it's absolutely relevant.
Sorry, I was going to say, Nathan, you know the joke that Kiwi has said and Paula and that has said, they get your own dirt? You know that joke? From the men telling God they don't need them anymore?
That has to do with the nature of
Let me
creation.
just tell the joke so we can continue. So God and man are having a discussion, and man says to God, I believe we don't need you anymore. We can create life without you. And God says, go on then, knock yourself out. So the guys talk to each other for a few moments and start gathering up some dirt. And God says, whoa, what are you doing there, lads? Get your own dirt.
Love it.
Meanwhile,
Right?
there's the quench is going to be fulfilled by a heliocentric story in this regards. Anybody familiar with? I've forgotten the name of the
Not for me.
doctor or scientist or whatever she calls herself in this regard, that was on TV claiming that we are the cousins of rocks. That sound familiar to anybody?
Michelle Haller.
Michelle Fowler. Everybody remember that? Why is that? Why would she say that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because this story that's going to expand off Brian's question, where did the basic stuff, the building blocks of life, come from? Well, according to the heliocentric story, the building blocks of life were formed in the hearts of dying stars. So as the star gives up on life and collapses in on itself, it forms the base elements that create life. And then by way of supernova explosion, those building blocks are projected out into the known universe to eventually coalesce on a planet like Earth, forming all of the materials that we have within us. So the gold that's present in your body has come, because it's a very heavy element, from the very last processes of the dying death throes of a star that's about to go supernova. That's how gold's formed, according to the heliocentric model. And that gold, minute in content at the last death throes of that star, has made its way from that dying star to the soil that we are made of. That's how we have gold content. We are essentially directly related to the rocks because they were formed in the same way from the hearts of dying stars. That's how all of our elements are created. Now, if you rewind the clock on that particular story, you get to the Big Bang. Now, I presume we're all familiar. I don't need to go through the extent of the Big Bang in the same way as the formation of the heavy elements that we have forming life. But that's the heliocentric quenching your thirst to know where it all came from. That's where it all came from if you're a heliocentrist. I thank you.
Pony boy, stay gold.
Okay, can we get the quote right though? Can we do the actual quote? Dr. Michelle Fowler. When you're standing on a mountainside and you see a rock, those are your cousins too. End quote.
I cry foul.
What came first?
Where it fits
I
into
remember
what
the
you're...
interviewer's face, especially.
Where it fits
What
in
came first,
is that...
matter or energy?
Yeah, it was followed by a stony silence, wasn't it?
But where
silence.
where my question fits in
Good
is
one,
that
Nathan.
Go on, Brian.
we can presume that what goes on with lava has to be a cycle, but we have no idea whether it's just being added to or a cycle or what it is. We don't know if there's not chemistry just being added. We don't know. We don't know what. We can't even claim it has to be a cycle because we don't know what has to be.
Well,
we only know the cycles.
can.
We know the cycles we know about, but that's all we know.
Yeah, but we also know that we
we
have to be in a cycle. Like all of this is cycles. Every content of the
Above
realm
ground,
is
we don't live
comprised of
underground.
cycles, so it has to come from somewhere. Something doesn't just get added, doesn't just materialize from absolutely nothing to add to it. That's illogical.
We know that.
How do you know? How do you know stuff doesn't get added?
Oh my
to?
God,
How do
has
you
he
know
just
that?
rinsed and repeated this?
Owen,
Yeah, we don't know
Owen, you're
anything.
trying to
Time
be
to go
God.
No, I'm trying to
agree.
figure out the logic of the realm. Things
I
don't just
agree.
materialize from nothing.
Yeah, but you have realm bias now.
Well, that's why I
God
asked
is not
Darwin.
knowledge.
What
Creator is not
came
knowledge.
first?
Grounded in physics.
Just one at a time. Hello. Audio chaos.
Look,
One at a time. Go ahead, Eli.
Sorry,
okay,
first
so
law.
my point is,
First law.
instead of Adam's example, I would use the sun. It's like, where does that energy come from?
Can I go next?
Is it just magically just? Yeah, are we gonna assume we know exactly how that's done, or are we gonna just say, yeah, you're right, that's not knowledge we'll be getting because that's just outside of our purview?
Owen, what you're doing is you're being married.
Well, Neil,
There's nobody
that was a
acknowledged a
question.
single word Eli just said.
Sorry.
Stop. So Eli makes a point. Everyone's just waiting for their turn to speak. It's unreal. So, oh my God. So Eli's saying, let's just take this away from volcanoes for a moment. Okay. There's the sun, Arwen. By comparison, Eli's asking you, does that work cyclically to be the greatest entropy generator known to man, or is it replenished? Sun. Same exact example, just sun instead of ground. Off you go. Let us know.
Okay, if I can, without somebody interrupting me again.
Immediate appeal to format.
I definitely think that it is a cycle. It's energy, right? We know it's energy. We can measure the energy. So energy has to come from somewhere. Now, how and where exactly it's coming from, I don't know. But naturally,
so that's the end.
We would have to infer that just like everything else, it would have...
My God, how frustrating. I don't know is all I need, and yet he wants to waffle on indefinitely. You don't know. That's the point that Adam's been trying to drill into you for this entire discussion.
Yeah, that wasn't my answer, though.
So you know that it's cyclical versus replenished. You know, either way. No, you don't.
I go next.
Everything in this realm is cyclical.
Owen, there's one. Because Eli's brought that up. It's a really good one. And what I find interesting though is you're the first to go physicality assumption bias to those things up there. Whether the energy is there, there's no guaranteed physicality up there. Yet you're assuming, therefore, mechanics underneath things. You pick us for the heavens and saying you're assuming the mechanics up there. But in this same thing, you're assuming the mechanics down there, whatever they are, whether it's replenishment by God, excess, whatever the arguments are, you are making that assumption based on, in this case, cyclical assumption bias.
Fine. Call it.
May I speak?
It's a contradiction of the conservation of energy.
Also, credit needs to be given where it's properly assignable, which is to say that it wasn't actually Eli, it was Brian that made this comparison at least a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Take it back off you, Eli.
Yeah, but Eli brought it up now. So, and Nathan's right. I wasn't even listening. I just wanted to get a word in. So
yeah, but you guys are trying to get a gotcha, and I'm not biting.
It's not a gotcha. It's a really good discussion. Yeah,
but you're presenting it. You literally said no. You should be saying you don't know. Yeah, I'm saying I don't say I don't know. So it's exactly what I just said.
Owen. Right. The point I just made there was to say the reason I'm continuing the discussion isn't to beat you around the head, prove you wrong. It's because it's actually a very good discussion to have. You can take the emotion out of it a little bit and analyze. They're very different worldviews, yours and mine, aren't they? Yeah. The reason I'm heated by it is because it's completely the opposite way I view things now. You want to build some kind of worldview, yeah? To have this. I'm happy to not have that and sit with the humility of it. I don't want it. And if I'm going to know anything, it has to be based in fact. I don't want to pretend what volcanoes are. I've got no desire. Somebody presents me with some evidence, I'll digest it. If it helps support a knowledge-based worldview, I'll accept it. Yeah. But what I don't want to do.
Yeah, but if your final answer is always I don't know, then what's the point of even conversating?
Can I ask a freaking question?
No, I'm talking, Neil.
I love it.
No, right? Yeah. What's a volcano? What do I need to know about a volcano? Right. So desperate. I need to know that if it's hot and going off, I stay away from it. As for what's making it hot and going off underneath, I'd love to know. But it's not something that I can sit there pondering that and me navel and come to an informed, knowledge-based answer. All I can do is build myself a lovely little story, which may as well be chatting to me cousins of rocks, yeah, and tell them. It's not the way I want to move forward. Once I woke up from this bullshittery of a globe, yeah, I decided I'm not going to build my worldview on that. And if that means humility, yeah, and having to say to people, I don't know.
That's not humility. That's nihilism. You have a nihilistic approach.
No, not to an extent of I don't know anything.
I'm waiting.
No, it isn't.
I think I've made...
Saying you don't know something when you don't know something is nihilism? The fuck?
Can I ask a question?
But he didn't just say I don't know. He said I don't want to know.
When you're going to
interrupt,
when you're going to interrupt logic and speculation for an I don't know answer, then yeah, that's nihilism, bud. That's not humility.
Okay, can Mario ever know
right, so let me...
why he's in the game? No, he can't.
No, and I'm not talking like that level of nihilism, Neil. I'm said, do I want to know? Yeah, I'd love to know. Present me with the evidence, yeah? But you're lot are just saying, if I just stand here and make shit up long enough so it becomes coherent and dielectric, I can convince myself and hopefully some others that I've got some greater
Red herring.
world understanding. That's what you're doing.
I'm not
Yes, it is.
doing at all because I'm not conjuring
That's what
things.
they do.
No more.
I'm
That's
not
what
conjuring
NASA
things.
does. That's
You're
what all
doing
these
no more. You're just
heliocentrists do.
conducting,
They speculate and put it out
conducting
there,
stuff
and you
now,
believe it.
and now you're just attacking me weekly. Like, yeah, not based on what we're discussing, not validating it, just now having a dig at me, which is just
This is
demonstrating
ironic.
where your argument's at.
This is ironically hypocritical from Arwen.
What? Guys, I'm not the one telling you,
Arwen's
oh,
giving
what
you
you're
logic.
doing is like making up dielectric acceleration, which is very easily disprovable, yeah? I'm not creating something magical. I'm using rudimentary logic and knowledge that we do have, like on the level of natural laws, to get a basic premise. That's all. I'm
Yeah,
not conjuring up anything to fix it.
Hopefully, we've just gone through and you can see why I have an objection to your using logic. I think I took it apart and showed that that logic wasn't valid with the way you used it to construct some concept with regards to this cyclical nature. I don't feel that that was valid. That's what I have an objection to. If it was valid, I'd take it on board because I do want to know more. But what I don't want to do is just make up stuff more.
I mean, you're supposing something coming from nothing, and he's telling you that's logically impossible, and you keep going on and on.
Exactly.
No, that's a straw man. That's the straw man.
No, that's not the straw man. That was literally handed to me as a counter argument.
No, he said, for example, how do you know or not that it's this instead? The point is you don't know, but you tried to straw man him with his example of not knowing something.
It's a violation of the first law.
You're
That's
talking
how I know.
about.
No, all he. Go ahead, Adam.
No, it's not. Howard.
Yes, it is. Conjuring something from absolutely nothing, out of nothing, is a violation of the first law.
But that's
not if you're the creator. Not if you're the creator, Arwen. First law is neither matter nor energy can be created or destroyed.
You have no evidence that the creator inserts anything after creation. Like,
yeah, I gotta agree with Alwyn there. When it was finished, he said it's finished.
No. Adam is not making this point that Arwen is dwelling on. Adam didn't say anything.
I know he didn't say what.
It's on record.
No, you're not. You're straw manning from the examples that I'm giving so that you don't have to deal with the overreaching point. You're arguing each one. Eli took it with the sun. Yeah, take the sun. I don't care which the example is. The point is you don't have the knowledge to make any assertion.
Yeah,
that's
true.
and it's made of rock, and it comes from the ground and goes up out the ground. Sometimes it flows, sometimes it shoots out the ground. As for the rest, and we can attribute things like pressure. As for the overall underlying causes, none of us have got any more knowledge than the others. Some of us have more narrative than the others. That's all. I don't want narrative.
I'm not giving you narrative. I'm giving you structure, and I'm creating it on the foundation of natural laws. And things don't just get added out of nothing externally.
That's not Adam's argument.
But initially,
that was what he was giving as a counter argument.
It's like, hang on. It's like the guy saying Adam is nihilist. No, Adam is saying you don't know what you don't know. Why make up stuff about it? Is that nihilism?
That wasn't my argument.
I didn't say it was yours. I said the other guy, if you were listening.
Okay, well, I call it a false comparison.
Adam's inferring this renewable.
No, answer the question. Is that nihilism when you don't know something?
Guys in G+, just give way to the guys in Discord when they do try and make a point and get a word in. Please give way to them.
Yeah, trying to dismiss logic for a simple I don't know answer continuously isn't going to get you anywhere. Arwen's trying to build up a logical premise to actually find some sort of an answer, an applicable answer, whereas Adam is just inferring this renewable energy source of matter and
You're still not
energy,
getting it.
You
which
don't.
makes
You
no
don't
logical
build premise.
sense.
You don't build. No. You
Can
don't.
Nathan
build
just take a
premises.
minute and just explain
I
to
just have to
people?
say
I
that you
can't.
don't.
Eli, bro.
You've explained it to Arwin.
Please.
They've not been listening. I explained it to Arwin in terms of him strawmanning your example. You've done it twice. I've done it once. I don't know if they're not getting it. What can I say, Adam? You're trying to give an
I don't want to
example.
keep going
You're
in
not.
circles.
Adam isn't suggesting that there's some, for example, in one of his examples, a pool of lava that's being replenished. He's saying, what if this was an unknown quantity? That's all he's saying. He's not saying it is. He's just saying, try and be aware that you don't know all of the unknown when it comes to this particular aspect. You just don't know.
Yeah, but you could tell if it were, right?
No!
Yes, if we're gonna know,
Because you don't know about
to
it.
respond. If you're gonna say,
Yes, there'd be
what if
telltale
this is the
signs,
case, then I would be able to give a logical inference-based fundamental response to it. Not knowing whether it is true, but how you could tell whether that were the case. And that was what I was trying to do. And it was constantly.
That's a no, Arwen.
And Adam said that he doesn't want speculation because that was the trick that the ballers and the heliocentrics put on us on other issues. So where's Adam wrong in this? I don't understand why. This is so easy to understand. I can't believe this.
This is true, and I would like to make one point that that Arwin said it once, and then Dyslow also said it. I thought it was important to point out that you don't build premises.
You do if you want to understand something. Yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
No, you don't.
You need a
All
framework
premises
for
have
your
to be known, not thought up.
Now, if you're gonna put it all into a logical functioning, especially cyclical context, you're gonna have to have a foundation of understanding. Yeah? Figuring things out is not just collecting data and making shit up. It has to have structure with the data.
I think what I see happening here is the people who aren't making claims are being held to those claims they're not making by the people who are making claims.
That's correct.
So we're not allowed to make logical claims. Got it.
Yeah, but what's
You
your
can
logic
make
based off of?
inferences if you want.
That's what it is.
But there's an important point that's just been made here, and again, Eli's been ignored. Yeah. Just reiterate your point, Eli, and then I will read the definition of premise.
You don't think up or build premises. And what you're talking about, Arwin, is epistemology. Anyway.
The premise is something you can build, something solid, known, that you can build an inquiry upon. The premise you build it upon, the thing that is solid and known. But then after that is the conjecture. But you're just saying, I don't even need to know the premise. Well, that's the whole problem.
What? No, that's not what I said at all.
They were your words, mate.
What the hell? I don't even need to know. What the hell? No, I exactly said the opposite the entire time. I do need a premise. And I do have a premise. In this case, it was the cyclical nature of the containment of the realm.
That's not a premise with regards to volcanoes.
It is in response to your postulation as an example of conjuring up stuff. How would we know? Well, we would know. All that stuff. You would know. You would be able to tell if there's something just being eternally replenished, but it would have to come from somewhere. It doesn't come out of nothing. That would be a violation of the first law. It just doesn't appear out of nothing. It has to come from somewhere else in the realm somehow.
Adam was saying what he was saying so that others wouldn't conjure up stuff.
Did the Molten Iron Core start this conversation? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, it did.
Jeez,
Yeah, chocolate.
sometimes it's 2 seconds. Nah, no evidence, but then sometimes it's like a whole after show.
Chocolate, when it comes to the Molten Iron Core, just go with the flow.
Which way is that flowing again? Which way is that?
Centrifugal.
Spin of the Earth.
that a
Oh,
direction?
you're not going to be able. You're not going to be able to know
there is a
everything.
vector.
That's a fact.
Yeah,
Nathan, I got a screenshot of
core?
Michelle Thaler. I got a screenshot of Michelle Thaler and Master B if you want to show.
Where's your proof of the iron core?
I don't think anybody claimed that. I think we're just because they brought that up, and I said, "Oh, so you're supposing volcanoes aren't real?" And then we just gone on this whole tangent about that.
That's how we ended up doing this.
The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. Pudding Earth.
We're talking about logic, but the logic is really bad here, and it's very confusing to me.
Pudding Earth core. Arwen just said that we have a pudding Earth core.
That was a good one.
The logical answer is you don't know. That's
like
the logical answer.
Exactly.
All
That's
right.
right.
Well, we can
I don't
wrap it
know,
up.
but I can
Hold on.
speculate.
Until you can make your own dirt, Alwyn, you don't know.
Why would I have to make the dirt to know
Why
it?
didn't you say that from the beginning, Arwen?
No,
I
that's
don't
not
know. I'm just speculating. Why didn't you say that from the beginning?
He did say that.
I kinda
He did
did.
say that several times.
Yeah, but he claimed that
Well,
he was
then we have
speculating
no
off the
argument.
logic.
Then we have no
He was
argument.
using
I
logical
don't have an argument.
speculation.
That's why I don't know why this is keep going like that.
When you said it has to be a cycle. That's what you said. It has to be a
that's right.
cycle.
Yeah,
And
the
you-
cycle, that part
Right.
definitely
And we
has to
pointed
be.
out where there was no evidence that it had to be a cycle, and you argued with that.
The evidence is that there is no example of when things out there aren't a cycle. Everything is.
I've got
Everything we know.
One last example then.
Okay,
Ollie.
but-
so and I want to do it from a creation point of view because it was raised earlier that that I think Neil said it that God set the world up as it'll be. So maybe it is a finite reservoir, and come the end of times, the magma will rise out, and the last bits will be ejected for the foundations of the new and final Earth. And after that point, there will be no more disruption, as the Earth will be settled and finished in its glory.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Yeah, cool story.
Maybe look, that's a viable
that's a
option in my head.
that's a
but there
logical
would be
speculation.
signs. There would be signs that
No,
means that it's finite,
Good one,
that the
Adam.
Earth would be sinking.
And that's not
There's
cyclical.
no logic in what Adam said, man.
Well, it would be cyclical. It's just a finite cycle that ends, and there would be a transformation that would go along with it. Namely, the Earth is sinking. Right? The Earth would be sinking if it's a finite reservoir, and it would transform into something new. Well, that would imply automatically, with something changing into new, a change that would be palpable.
Are you speculating this, or do you know?
This is logical inference.
Are you speculating, or do you know?
Logically
Well, we're
implied,
talking
bro.
about a presupposition. So
What is your logical inference based on? Do you know, or are you speculating?
cyclical nature of reality, physical reality.
So you're going to tie something cyclical to everything?
I'm going to use cyclicality as a framework to reflect upon with
As a bias.
anything physics related. That's right.
Cyclical bias. How could you be so
Fine, call it
hypocritical?
cyclical bias. It works really well.
Yeah, it's a physicality assumption bias guy now has cyclical bias. Unbelievable.
I don't have physicality
the
assumption bias, but if you accuse me of cyclical bias, fine, sure, I take
No,
it.
when you here's the problem. When you say physical assumption bias in the sense that somebody actually commits a fallacy, you're correct. But this is just different rhetoric, but the same functionality of flawed logic. And you're saying it's fine. No, it's not fine. It's just as bad.
What are you talking about? Physicality assumption bias
that
is
made
not
no
a
sense.
fallacy. It's a psychological condition. It isn't a fallacy. It's not related to physics.
No, I said when someone commits a fallacy.
And when you say that everything is a cycle, that is a physical assumption bias.
Can
Just look
something
up in the
come from
sky.
nothing, Adam?
No, it isn't,
Just
because
look up in the sky,
physicality
everything
assumption
is
bias
cycle,
is
right?
about the raw data of observation. It is not about things that you put together in your mind. It is actually about looking and then your mind telling you that's physical. Yeah, it's not about your internal thinking processes. That's not
Yeah,
physicality assumption bias. The bias
Here,
comes from your
here's
sensory
the
input.
issue though with a cycle. A cycle would have to start as something, go to something, and end as something. Okay, so you need to first figure out the first step of the cycle
There's
and
no end.
all the steps in between. Yeah, but there's
no
still a
end,
start. There's
Like the
still
moon.
where does the lava come from? How does it erupt? You know, where does it go? What does it turn into? How does the cycle start again? If we're talking about a cycle, like Arwen says, everything in life is, then there's a start, a middle, and an end.
That's not exactly what I imply with cyclical. What I mostly imply with cyclical is that everything keeps going in a cycle. It's not a finite cycle. It is actually the nature of continual cycles. So maybe it wasn't specific enough in that.
Hey, before I go, I just want
It's
to
just
say
transforming its state of existence, but it's always existing. Something can never come from nothing. It can only transmute and transverse its states of existence, whether it be energy or matter, or vice versa. Like to
Right. Well,
imply
that's my point.
Exactly.
What are
After
those?
creation. After creation. That's right.
Okay, before I go, I just want to say it's tough for Arwen because there is cyclical bias since he lives in the Netherlands.
Bicycle?
Very
bias?
good.
What? Are you? Well, I am bicycle biased. That's right.
Arwen, the cycles you're talking about are physical cycles. All the cycles you're talking about in the natural world are physical cycles. Every part of the natural world is physical, whether it be solid, liquid, gas, plasma. So any cycles you're talking about are physical cycles. So that is a physical assumption bias.
No, it's what do you call it?
I think you're changing it to
not
suit
the right
your argument.
No, it's God, I can't
How
think
can you
of
have
the word for it.
rectangular looping model?
It's not physicality assumption bias. Physicality assumption bias is psychological and has to do with your sensory input, not within your reasoning in your mind. That's
It's got to do with you not knowing and claiming something is physical.
I literally created the concept. I know what I'm talking about here. It is psychological.
Yes, and you're guilty of it.
I got a question. As it's been going on for better than an hour now. Not that the discussion isn't fruitful, but I'm questioning where it's placed. This is a flat earth debate channel. I'm just asking a question. Would this be more appropriate on the sidelines in the background, just amongst us? Or on a flat earth show? I just got a question.
Flat Earth show for sure.
Hold on.
Unless you want another hour of grinding with a
Hello?
Clue virus
Hello?
instead.
Yeah,
This is the after show, so
maybe shut up while I'm talking. Thank you. Yeah, the reason I've let it go on is because what the discussion is specifically about when it gets back on topic is the very ground we're standing on and how it might have been created. So when you say flat Earth debate, well, it's very much about the Earth. That's why I've let it go on this long, in case you were, if that was your question.
Yeah, it was my question.
First, energy or matter?
Can I jump in? I
John.
would say I can say that I can actually show that Erwin is false. By saying that everything is a cycle. If it can be shown that one thing is not a cycle, which means is a repetitive thing that's occurring, then his statement by its very nature is false. So a rock sitting,
physical example.
Agreed.
A rock sitting on the ground is not repeating anything; it's just existing.
Oh,
the
God.
seasons,
Oh, God.
the seasons, the
Are you serious,
constellations, the moon.
Tell me how there's a cycle with a rock sitting there.
Because we just told you, dude, volcanoes, bro. Like, where you been the whole
I
conversation?
see a rock. I have been listening. Now you're talking about a volcano. Now I'm showing the falsity of his premise by saying everything is a cycle. All it has to be shown is one thing: a rock sitting on the ground that's been sitting there for who knows how long is not going through a cycle.
Yes,
Maybe
it
it is.
will.
Hold on.
Yeah, it will.
Missed the
Yeah, it
entire.
will. It will turn to
Let me have that
sand, it
rock
will
will go
turn to
through a
dust,
cycle.
and it will
Slow tried to
transform
answer
into
first.
gases.
Hold on, Arwen.
Right.
Slow
Mate.
tried to answer first. Go ahead, Slow.
I was just saying, I mean, where you've been the entire conversation, this has been the point of contention the entire
I've
time,
been
that
listening.
that
I have been.
volcanoes create rocks, right? And how is this this repetitive cycle continuously ongoing? That's the whole point of the conversation. Like,
No,
rocks
no,
come
it
from
wasn't.
volcanoes.
The whole point.
How do you know they
Arwen, just give me a second.
Hold on a second.
The whole point of the conversation wasn't for me, Arwen, to argue and prove you wrong. Yeah, wasn't to kill. It was to show or demonstrate to me how I view things now and what I will accept as fact and where I'll let my mind wander, and certainly what I'll explore to explain to other people as truth. Yeah, and what I'll. So, John, that's why I've done this. Yeah, because to me, that's quite important. Part of this was dialectics came into this, yeah, and this is the same thing. We got on to this, and it's to me, it's about standards. Is the reason I've enjoyed quite a good debate with Arwen, whichever way it goes, doesn't really matter. Which is why I've said these things and been called a nihilist for understanding my limitations and what I'm prepared to make claims about, and why I set standards for things I will make claims about. To me, it was quite a fruitful conversation in that sense, in terms of fundamentally, these new standards I have are the ones that oppose the crap that allowed me to believe I was on a spinning ball in space.
Oh, so I had a myopic view of what was going on. So it's not really about lava. It's about speculation in general for an hour and a half.
That was the point, yeah. But in detail, yeah, to the point that we're prepared to argue some of the nuances of and this is why it was a good argument between me and Arwen, because you're arguing what is speculation and what isn't, and the difference between the way me and Arwen approach these things. I don't think there's a right and wrong, but hopefully there's a demonstrable difference between two guys that sit on the panel that are mates. But the purpose wasn't to win an argument with Arwen. It was
Logic's always applied.
And he didn't help at all.
Logic always applies. Really, these vague, baseless generalizations without specific examples, right? That's what the ballers do.
John, respect. I think a lot of this was going that the point of what was going off in the meet room was being missed a number of times, I think, by Discord. So again, that's another example.
Well, and I'd like to get back to what Geisler was saying. To say that rock came from a volcano, you'd have to know its origin from beginning to end. And if I don't see its origin, you can't assume that it's cyclical.
Yeah, but I can definitely.
But we can infer.
No, I can definitely say that it's succumbing to entropy, Paul. That rock's decaying.
Well, is entropy a cycle?
Maybe. I don't know the extent of the cycle. So if the cycle's longer than I can experience, then I may never know, unless it's tracked over a long period. So if you look at gas cycles versus liquid cycles, you can generally find that the gas cycles occur in a lot quicker time period, right? There's a lot shorter duration when you're talking about stuff happening with gas. Seems instantaneous to us. Hold on, I'm nearly there.
If entropy is increased... Oh, sorry.
I'm saying that when you look at something in that state with the high velocity of gas, things are happening quickly. And then when you look at cyclical nature of water, it's not happening as quickly. It's slowed down. So then when you get to a rock is still succumbing to entropy, that much I know, but is it going to be even slower still in terms of the cycle? Perhaps. I don't know. Now, does this mean, before anybody shrines the living crap out of me, that I'm asserting there is a cycle with a rock? I don't know.
The rock cycle?
Don't you dare, Adam, as you moaned about it twice.
I'm more concerned with entropy being a cycle.
Right? Define a cycle. If
Well,
we're
let's
going to
see.
get
When I
pedantic,
defined it,
let's get down to the bare
I'll
roots
define
of
it
it.
because I looked it
What's a
up.
cycle?
This
Well,
goes.
I
Thanks
looked
for
it up.
referencing me, whoever did that. So, define a cycle and then apply a
4
practical
seasons.
example for everyone to see so we can end this.
Something
this is what I'm.
traversing its physical state of existence. There's your cycle.
I
No,
didn't say
no,
make
it
it up.
ain't. That's not
Something
it.
that is continuous.
Weather cycle.
Something,
You want
something
an
that is
example?
Let me
continuous.
Weather
read. Let me
cycle.
read. I have a definition. Let me read it out. A series of events that are regularly repeated in the same order. That is a cycle. A rock
Okay, give me an
existing,
example
where you're
with the rock.
crumbling. A rock just exists. It's not going through a cycle. It's just existing. It may be crumbling, but it's not repeating.
Does a rock exist indefinitely, Paul?
Well, we don't know that it's not.
It's not going through a cycle.
That's right.
Well, here's
We
the thing.
don't
It's
know
not. It's
We
not.
don't know.
Hold on a
that.
second.
It may or
Hold
may
on a
not
second.
be.
Hold on a
I
second.
was trying to be helpful.
It comes back to what we don't know. Like, we could say the rock is not recycling, but we don't know it's not part of a cycle. So we can't say it.
So rock.
Does a rock,
Don't talk
does
about
a
my
rock
cousin like
exist
that.
So rock.
indefinitely?
Yeah,
No.
keep this. This is
Everything
family
physical
show.
decays.
I
There's your
got it.
cycle.
Don't talk about his extended
Can I-
family. No,
I got a question. I got a question.
I got a rock. No, hold on, Arwen. You got a rock. It disintegrates, succumbs to entropy. So it's going to become a rock again? Really?
Yeah, that's my point. Thank you, QE. That's my point.
Maybe.
Please say yes.
Maybe.
How?
Yeah, maybe.
Right. So I got a
That's
question.
only
It's important.
insinuating that a rock was always a rock. Because
I wasn't
geology
joking.
is just all dead biology.
I said maybe.
Where
I
did
gave
the
an
rock
example
come from?
earlier. How do you know that over time the erosion
know.
that's been part of the entropy won't leave it filtering down to the ground, and then through pressure over time stuff builds up on top of it and eventually it gets under so much pressure that it forms lava? We don't know if it's in a cycle.
Thank
I
you.
can my bad.
Thank
Only in
you.
the middle of a sentence,
So
Arwen.
every
My
rock
bad.
would have
My
to do
bad.
that.
Still in the middle of the same sentence.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Please finish.
We don't know, and it's easy to speculate about a cycle that could be occurring. We just don't know.
Just
See,
there
and my point
is
was
the
this.
whole problem, Arwen, right? What Nathan said, for you to jump in and think what he said justified you, is my whole point.
I just gave my example for me, but look, I have a question. So every time there's a
Did
volcano
that go over
eruption,
your head, Arwen? Did that
Oh,
just
God.
totally go over your head, what I just said?
No, it didn't go over my head. I
You
just
chose
thought
not
it
to
was
recognise it.
incorrect.
Cool. Wow. It did go over your head then.
No, it didn't. It was just
Okay.
incorrect.
Just explain it then, why I was aghast when you jumped in and went exactly when Nathan just gave another example that he couldn't back up and says it could, if I wanted to just make this up and perceive it could happen. Why did that justify what we've been talking about?
He said thank you.
We were talking about cycles and examples of them, and I thought it was a very good example.
It wasn't. He was speculating, is the point.
I thought it was a very worthy piece of speculation.
Yeah, I agree.
Speculation.
So what? Sorry, is the scientific claim being made here?
You
No,
guys
it's
gotta
not.
go to a baller channel.
There's nothing scientific about it. You're acting just like a baller.
That's a red herring fallacy. There's nothing scientific. He's right. That's red herring fallacy. Stick to the topic. Please don't stick to the topic and let's move on. Maybe talk about hair or something.
Well, how is that a red herring?
I still had a question for everybody about volcanoes and lava eruptions. So if there is a sizable quantity of lava being erupted, does the land where it's erupting sink physically? Is that known to happen? That's a question.
It does, of course.
Does it or
Anytime
does
you
it
have,
not sink?
soil,
It's your claim. Back your claim on.
anytime you have soil and you
That's a
apply
question.
vast amounts of weight upon that soil, there's going to be a compression factor, therefore a sinking effect.
OMG.
Can we
Unbelievable.
change the subject? Because this
All right,
sucks.
all right. So you say that it does sink then. If there's heavy volcano eruptions, it does actually sink. Of course, new sediment is like put on top of it. Right, so it sinks.
Well,
and then,
no.
hold on,
Oh
I'm
my
not done
God.
yet. I got a follow-up question before you all erupt, point intended, right?
I'm
Does,
not. I'm gonna
when the
erupt mine, I'm
volcano
just
gets ready to
hovering
erupt,
under the
does it actually, does the land swell back up? This is just
Hang
inquiry.
on. Think about what they said. The word compression. For something to compress, there needs to be something underneath. Let's just say underneath and on top. The weight of the extra that's come out of the volcano is the part on top. So what's it pressing against to compress?
There is no
I'm
weight.
talking. Look, I'm not talking
Isn't it?
about pressing
It's the
weight of
polonium
the new
people,
sediment. I
and
was
their
talking
density
about
increases.
the land.
Right? When volcanoes erupt, right, the excess weight that's on top is borne by the polonium people underneath.
Dude, I'm out of here, man. This is just
and
not
therefore,
funny.
and that, listen, this is important.
You guys have lost
That's
your
why
mind.
sea levels don't change, isn't it? Because sea levels have stayed the same, even though we've had volcanoes. Yeah, and it's not because compression would happen, but it's the polonium people that stop it happening. Yeah. And question answered.
I have a point of order, Your Honor. Brian invoked weight. If we're in the general relativity paradigm, there is no weight.
Well,
also, Nathan, I have an inquiry. Can I say something?
No, hang on. You're
Nathan,
not addressing me. You can't. Not normally. We have to wait till I do it. Till I address what he's after saying. Well, the lava is going to have a downward vector due to it being displaced into air. So, and it will have. We can put it on a scale and show that it creates a pressure on a scale within air.
Oh, there you go. Then. So we can definitely form a definitive conclusion to that answer and build a model on it, yeah, and put it into a cycle. What the fudge is going off?
I didn't say you can make a cycle out of it.
You're just humouring it. Stop it.
Well, I didn't say anything about
Nathan,
a cycle
can I make an inquiry real quick?
It will create a compression.
He's asked
but the
twice.
compression
Guys,
needs something
can you just ask
to
a
press.
question? Go ahead, then.
Yeah. Can you just name this episode Arwen's Pudding Core?
Maybe.
What? What are you talking about?
The fans want.
You said earlier that the Earth is a pudding core. So
the proof is in Arwen's pudding.
What? A what?
Arwen's pudding core.
Oh, the pudding. No, I just made that up. Right there. It's the first time.
Like the whole discussion.
Really?
Yeah, like the whole discussion. Yeah.
I blame QE for all of this.
Yeah, I figured.
Okay, whatever.
You know, when somebody brings up a topic that's, I just want to say something. If somebody brings up a topic that's, let's say, questionable, you're not obliged to cycle it for 2 hours, right? You're not Jedi mind tricked, right? Evaluate it on its face and then try to move on. I'm just saying.
We did. And then Owen came up with, yeah, but what would happen? Wouldn't the land sink? And off it went again. It's just...
And then I got strawmanned and attacked on the use of the word weight. It's terrible.
I'd sooner discuss the word weight.
I don't see how that's a straw man. There is no weight in general relativity.
No. Adam strawmanned me when he brought up cycles.
I was just ranting, Brian. You were just in the stream. I'm sorry about that.
I don't mind. I don't take it that serious. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I could go to a shop and disprove QE by buying a weighing scales.
Or you could just get a bicycle and go and cycle outside because it's really beautiful weather, probably. Right? Is it good weather over there?
Nobody
now?
answered my question that I asked earlier. What came first, energy or matter?
God.
But you can't have matter or energy without space.
God came
right?
first, and then energy and matter
No, I think it's counter space. first.
simultaneously.
He thinks it's counter space.
Yeah, you
How
can
is
have
space
your bar
created?
if you want, but energy and matter came simultaneously, and God came first.
That's slow. I
Well,
think
that's just
Adam was trying.
all logical speculation.
Adam, were you trying to punk somebody out with that counter space?
No, if you follow it to its logical conclusion, then the first manifestation has to be within counter space to then come into real space, doesn't it?
Somebody's taking the piss out of somebody else here. Dice
Yeah,
low.
actually, you're right, Adam.
If matter and energy are the same thing from the same source, then none of them came before each other.
Can we just recognise that from Discord I was told that I'm correct, please?
Can we acknowledge that?
I concur.
Thank you very much.
Wait, that it's correct or that somebody from Discord acknowledged it?
No, that my conclusion was confirmed to be correct from Discord.
And your conclusion was counter space was created first.
Yeah, you're going to
He
have
said
to have
energy comes from counter space, I
centripetal
think.
inward energy first within counter space before you can get any manifestation within real space.
What the hell is counter space?
Dielectric
It's where
field.
you put your
I don't know.
It's where you
That's why I
put
have
your
my coffee
drink.
pot, my Instapot, my microwave.
That's where energy comes from and goes to. That's what the dielectric field is.
It's not real.
Yes, and then Nicole married for love, and Pol Pot was her florist.
So energy came first, basically. That's the answer.
Energy doesn't come from a place that isn't real.
Oh, it's real. It's just not physical.
You can't have it.
Not physical.
What is energy? Energy is
Sorry,
ability
real
to-
but not physical.
Right.
Well,
Energy
energy
is
is
a
the ability to do work.
as is matter.
And what are you working when there's nothing there?
What's the physical
Come on,
attributes of like a magnetic field per se?
No, counter space is the place where you put your drinks.
How many
Wait, does
particles
something
are in a
have to be
magnetic
physical
field?
to be real?
Maybe
Is that what
that'll be
they're saying?
easier.
That's why I got my microwave.
Surely
Is it-
you need. It's just to check. Don't you need the
How
centripetal
much does a magnetic field
collapsing
weigh?
counter space of the field as the first thing before we could then get into real space and matter? So it'd be
You're
the
gaslighting yourself.
The centripetal collapsing
You said it.
counter space.
Yeah. in
Wow.
that's required first. That'll be the first.
I'll go back to work.
This is kind of, but it is a chicken and egg thing. But I suppose that would be the place I would start it.
I'm with QE. What's counter space again? what's that?
Where you put your
Counter
microwave.
space
What
is
did we
the
call that?
dielectric field. I'm keep getting interrupted, so I
Yeah.
can't answer you.
It's kind of like the ether that way.
It is the ether. It's a part of the ether.
There
It's
you
one of the
go.
halves of ether.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
dice though, the
It's
problem
it's
is
the
that within your
dielectric field.
paradigm of what you believe, energy has to come first. But that only is within
Yes.
what you believe.
True.
I said earlier, I
True.
said, if matter and energy are the same thing from the same source, then none of them could come before each other.
Energy comes from.
You don't know where energy comes from. That's the point. You don't know if matter and energy are
well,
the
that's what
same
I'm
thing
telling
from the
you.
same source. But you don't know if they're not the same thing from the same source. You have to presume that energy came first.
What's energy?
Well, they're not the same thing, but they are probably from the same source.
No, look. I think we can all agree
You don't
on
know that,
matter, right? But
God.
just from a kind of definitions point of view, can we define energy just to move this?
Yeah, just
forward?
replace the word energy with the word field, and there you go.
Wow. That's not going to solve anything.
Well, you'd have
Yeah,
to
there's a
understand what fields are.
field.
Have you ever
What's a
defined a
field?
field?
What's a field? I asked that
Like a
question earlier. What's a
magnetic
field?
field? A palpable, measurable magnetic field?
Oh, and leave dice though answer it. He's the one talking about field. Leave him answer.
Guys,
Yeah.
could I just ask for clarity just on that? I'm happy to accept it. So you say the word for so obviously energy had one nuance to me. Field has another kind of implicit understanding. Can you explain why you're now describing energy in the field? I assume it will help with the understanding the mechanics, but because that's quite a big jump, isn't it? I said let's just define energy, and you said a field. So could you just expound on that?
Yeah. So a field is essentially just an ether perturbation modality, and ultimately there's only one field, that being the ether itself. But the ether in stasis has no Cartesian presence, which is the only manner by which these empirical beings deem anything to be as. So as such, we must declare that the dielectric to be the one fundamental field as manifest, which is the ether under stress or torsion. And the conjugate of this dielectric, which is this field I'm speaking of, is magnetism, which itself is the loss of energy of the dielectric, which manifests this toroidal force vectors.
What puts this field under the initial stress to causal? I won't repeat what you just said, but that initial perturbation in the field. What's the cause of that, which then has the following cascade you described?
Basically, the dielectric is the ether under torsion, whereas magnetism.
What's causing the torsion in the ether? That bit.
So yeah, let me finish. So the dielectric is the ether under torsion, which is one half of this ether field modality, and magnetism is the other half of that field, being the energy dissipation of that torsion, which manifests this torus geometry, and together are just like inverse sides of a silver coin. The dielectric and the magnetic are just these conjugate pairs of fields, which are but one, but ideated as different due to their attributional natures and geometries of expression.
And what exists in the physical and one in counter space?
Yeah. Well, what was your question? Sorry.
Yeah, but that's cool. But my point was, so the initial point was what's causing the torsion in the. So you're saying that that's caused in harmony, kind of a cyclical effect with the electromagnetic field. In that correct?
Yeah. All fields are just pressure mediations. And all motion is either from counter space or towards counter space. I'm getting a really bad echo.
It's probably me. I have to keep muting. Sorry.
Yeah. However, ultimately, all field pressure is curvilinear, since force and inertia are mutually destructive. Force and motion are set as reference to the creation of space, form, and magnitude, that being the dissipation of energy. So centrifugal divergence to or as Cartesian impotency of energy, i.e. the motion towards discharge or volume or magnitude. So we only have space due to the magnetic field itself. This is why I'm going
with first actions have to be in counter space before manifestation can occur in real space. So that's where I'd take it back to. He's trying to take it back to the bodies first. So yeah, I would say it's the field in counter space then.
Yeah, the loss of energy or inertia is necessitated by a helical curve, which generates dimensionality and ultimately the torus. So the magnetic field is created by the loss in the dielectric. So it's this cyclical procession, if you will.
Dude, I'm getting dizzy from even there, then, isn't it? It's chicken and egg.
Oof.
How did the cycle get started? What started this cycle? What started this fluctuation? What caused this dielectric?
I could only give you.
What caused
I could only give you my personal opinion on that, and I'm a God-fearing man, so ultimately I would say that there's an ultimate creator, an intelligent design that created this entire system that we're within. So that would be my personal answer.
Woo.
The first
Isn't
work
that
done
lovely?
was God. Well, no, actually, there's some validity in that, because if energy is the ability to do work, the first work done was by God. Yeah, that makes logical sense. I'll go with that.
Yeah, I gotta get back to work though, guys. I'll be back in a little bit. Hopefully, you guys are still here.
Take your time.
Just
No
did
hurry.
work, Dice Low.
No need.
Let it be, buddy.
Couple of shout
If you
outs.
want to wait till tomorrow, we're
It
okay
did
with that.
sound interesting,
Yeah,
but
while those
seriously.
guys say their goodbyes to him. So shout out to Ted
Definition.
Marks, who supported the Flatsoid GoFundMe campaign. And there's also been a couple of other anonymous donors that have supported the campaign as well. So big shout out to you. Let's just refresh this so we can see what the total is. Yeah, a couple of anonymous donors. And Ted. So thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate the support.
There was a statement there, I think, from Discord. Energy, because I asked for the definition of energy then, and one that came from the dielectric world, I don't think we got one, but one that came back was the ability to do work. Is that a definition of energy? Or is that a definition of what you can do with energy?
Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. Even let's say you have a field, and of course Jesse is screaming. Even if you have a fluctuation in the, let's say, field, whatever that field is, whether it's a dielectric, whether it's quantum field, whether it's whatever, something had to cause the change in the field, whatever that cause is. Whether it's it's always fluctuating or it's started to fluctuate. If it started to fluctuate, then you have to have a cause for that fluctuation. Whatever that fluctuation is. A change in state, there has to be a cause for it, whatever that state may be. And that's my argument. And I don't have a problem with it being God, because ultimately that's what I believe.
Can we differentiate that? A change in state certainly would require energy. A change in a field, you can change a field with energy, but fields change anyway, don't they? They're by their nature.
But what causes the change?
Is that that changing of the field by definition energy? Is the point I'm asking.
I mean, that's getting probably beyond my pay grade a little bit, but I mean, any kind of change, either it's intrinsic to itself or it's extrinsic or outside of itself, which means it's something inside of that caused the change or something outside of that caused the change. So then you have to argue what is, this is the same. If this is the physics question, which is all about energy, fields, all this stuff, you have to understand what's the cause of it. What caused the fluctuation? What caused the change? Was it the particle? Was it something outside? Did the field cause the particle, which is what gluons and all this other field theories are attributing to? What caused the change in the state? What caused it? Did it just randomly happen by whatever circumstance? We don't know. Well, that's fine, but are you doing science? Or could it be something exterior to us, which could be something God caused the change.
Or us, when we sometimes describe these things. So Dr. John Dee recently covered this, and he showed that you've generally got systems that are in equilibrium, and then we come along and disturb them, and then describe the disturbance that we're showing dissipate back to equilibrium.
Right. And so what caused that? You. And
in that
back
instance,
to what QE thinks about quantum.
Yeah, that is kind of the point. That was the point that Dr. John Dee was making. So yes.
Well, even on QE, in the knowledge of the Witch path, the knowledge changes the state of the particle. It's the knowledge, or from the wave to the particle, it's the knowledge. That's the change of state. It changes it. So, I mean, it goes across the board on anything. If a thing was in equilibrium, what changed the equilibrium? What caused it? It's either inside the thing you're talking about, or something exterior to itself. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why this is so hard to comprehend for some people. I guess you get it, Nathan. I think you understand what I'm driving at.
Only because of Dr. John Dee.
Okay.
Isn't it the ability to have that knowledge that changes it?
The ability to have that knowledge changes it? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, like if that knowledge can be
Well, I
obtained,
mean,
right? Not the knowledge
yeah, the
itself,
knowledge has
just
to be
the ability
obtained.
for that.
Well, and this gets back to something QE is arguing, and I have to agree with him on this one too. To have knowledge or information, choice has to be involved. Means you have to choose to see it, recognize it, choose to go yes or no. Knowledge is freedom of will has to be in play with knowledge. It's just something you can't get away from. So it is intrinsic, and choice is intrinsic in the knower.
Right.
It's part of the nature of the
So,
knower.
so our opponents have this choice, and they can choose to ignore knowledge. They're not going to be swayed by what we put down in terms of factual information. Why? Well, because there's no need for them to. They have to make a choice whether or not they're going to accept that.
Yep.
Generally speaking, we people are very, very, very influential on what happens around us. Less so because we've been convinced that things just kind of happen, and we have got very little influence over them. And I don't think that's true. I think we've got a lot of influence over what goes on around us and in our lives directly.
I think that indirectly, directly, I agree with you, Nathan. I think that's what they call it, the observer effect. How the observer actually changes the state of the thing you're observing. You can't get away from it, and that's been an ongoing problem within science for how long? Since it's been in its inception.
Which means we are the world. We are the children.
It means that our consciousness and our observation and knowledge has an integral, direct connection with the visceral, foundational nature of the world. But it is still a separate thing. You're not literally creating reality around you. And if you have those fantasies, you need to tone it down.
What a wonderful team. What a wonderful community.
Oh, we doing kumbaya now?
It's funny.
No,
it's funny.
no, but it is
discussion.
true. We make a better day for you and me.
I was gonna say it.
I actually, this is a good discussion to circle back to what was said earlier about get your own dirt. You couldn't even have a world to manipulate if God didn't give you the dirt to manipulate.
That's right.
Right, it really was God that fed the world and made it a better place.
And he gives us all our information and ideas, right? This is his play. Our spirits, together or separate, are his play in the material realm. He's the one that hands you the information.
Right, in the material
Michael
world.
Jackson,
and I am a material girl.
Bob Geldof that fed the world.
Listen, there's a choice we're making.
That is one.
I want to circle this back even further to before the pre-show. If you don't own the dirt, how do you own anything? Because who made the dirt?
Bob Geldof is a rat.
We're his flock, and he is.
Girls just want to have fun.
Our experiences with us. He's the source of information. I'm sorry, but this is real. This is what's going on.
It's like with Eli earlier.
Right.
Paul makes a point.
I like the
Everyone
random
ignores
music titles that are just jumping in here.
Wait a minute. Yeah, Nathan's trying to get to my point. So, say it again, Nathan. What was I saying?
I was saying that you've got a good point, and everyone's just brushed past it immediately. So the ownership of the dirt, right, which is an illusion we started off this show with that Paul was pointing out. So we've got this idea of ownership, and what we're really talking about is concepts that men have created to deprive other men of a perceived ownership. What really is ownership? Well, if you've got it in your hand and you're eating it, you own it. Now, if someone comes along and says, have you got a permit for that apple? Yeah, that's somebody trying to deny you ownership of something that's physically in your hand. Now, have you taken the apple from someone else by thumping them to get it? That's different. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about ownership. Now, Paul's brought it down to brass tacks because we're talking about lava and the ground. Who owns it? That's what Paul's asking. And there's a perception of ownership that's portrayed throughout the lands, isn't there? By other men. Right? Go on, Paul. You can elaborate to your heart's content.
Yeah, even the apple in your hand. Did you actually? Where did the apple come from?
From a tree. I didn't grow it. I stole it from the tree.
You didn't grow it. You got it from the tree. And see, here's the thing. Truly, only way you can own anything, even in one sense of the word, ultimately it comes down to it has to be given to you. Someone
given dominion.
Right, even dominion. It's given to you by someone else.
True.
So you can't. So even God, if God says you have dominion, but even dominion is not ownership. Dominion is rule, and you could argue be taking care of something that somebody else owns.
I agree.
So it's stewardship. So it comes back to we actually are stewards of this world. We are not owners of anything in this world. We're the stewards of it. So how can I mean, I don't even own my own body because I didn't make it. I mean, I possess it, but that doesn't mean I own it because I didn't make it.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, you try to own anything, it's eventually going to deteriorate, to go away, including your body, right? So go ahead, try to squeeze and hold it.
Right, but men don't like that. So
No, they don't.
The idea of convincing another man that he's renting something from you that he owns, that gives men a real hard on. They love that.
Well, ownership implies control, and no one has absolute control. And obviously anybody knows this. Control is an illusion. What do you truly control in this world? I can't control my life. I mean, a rock can strike me in the head and I'll be dead in a second. I have no control over I have some level of control, but ultimately it can be taken any moment. I didn't bring myself into existence. That was beyond my control.
Why would your
Ownership
cousin
implies
do that?
control. What's that? What's that, Neil?
I said, why would your cousin do that? Hit you in the head.
Well, I don't know.
I was going
to. What I'm saying is, I think you get my point. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to make a slightly different juxtaposition, which is to say, when you compare it in terms of ownership, what do you really own? And then I use the example of men convincing the ownership of something. We use the example in the pre-show of a car. Well, you're the registered keeper. You don't really own it. Yeah? But that's control, power. The things that men really want. Money and power and control. Over other men and land and other frivolous things that they think they can control. Now, that illusion of control, by way of convincing another man that you own something that he doesn't, is the same illusion that the ballers around us try and create when they try to convince others. So if you take, for example, Ruhif and McToon, by trying to elevate the conversation above the pay grade of the people who are watching, they have given themselves that illusion. I typically call it pain relief. But what they're actually doing is conjuring an illusion that their paradigm exists because they've convinced another man of that paradigm's existence. So that's enough of an illusion in the same way the illusion of ownership of the ground beneath your feet somehow is real. It isn't. And somehow the paradigm that they've created by convincing another man isn't real either. But we like to gaslight ourselves into believing these sorts of things.
Isn't it? It's the Emperor's New Clothes analogy, isn't it? They've convinced themselves by other people standing around them saying that is the most elegant garment. That's the best proof of a ball. When they're stood there bollock naked with nothing on.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take the next level. I mean, even to tie it to the next level, science is about control. It's about understanding and controlling the physical and natural world. Is that truly possible? No. So even that adventure and trying to control the natural world is also an illusion because we can't. Who can control the wind? Oh, there is one person that did, but we won't go there. Go ahead.
Is it? There's two bit. I'm agreeing with both of you because to me there's a difference. I'm talking about the real world and not my acceptance that if you have the acceptance of a creator, that ultimately you are subject to his will and all the ways in which the world works. I've got no problem with that. The stuff I'm relating to really is the real world, which is man's world, not so much realizing that the creator is ultimate in terms of my mortality or fate, whichever way you want to. The two I'd suggest are slightly different in terms of how you have to view them.
Can I give an example about or say something about the whole ownership thing? We all want to own a brand new shiny bicycle, right? Now, unless this bicycle is going to be some kind of a classic, if it's just your average bicycle, we want it to be new and shiny. But when that bicycle becomes old and rusty, we don't want to own it anymore. We want to throw it away. And that's where God comes back in and goes,
I disagree.
I'll take care of that with entropy for you. We end up. I'm sorry. You talk for me, Armin. Off you go.
I'm sorry.
I'm absolutely wasting me time because you can't keep out of it. Go on, off you go.
No, I'm sorry. Continue.
So you should be. It's an outrage. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. If I make enough of a drama, I get to go back to what I was saying.
That's a good idea, Brian.
Oh God, do it again. Tell Neil. No, come on, because he's gonna have to summarise the first point first. Neil, you'll have to go through the first bit again if we put enough distance between it. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, the point I'm making is we want to own a new shiny new bike, but when that bike becomes old and rusty, we don't want to own it anymore. We want to throw it away. So we decide to relinquish that responsibility of ownership. Unless it's a classic bike, we're not going to want to renew it. We're going to want to throw it away. And that's where God comes back in and takes back what he originally owned and deals with that problem for us with entropy. I'll sort that out for you, boy, with entropy. Don't worry about it. That's what he says to you. Because you don't want that bike anymore. It's just out in your shed and it's rusty. It's in your backyard and you want rid of it.
I'm really sorry that I interrupted you mid-sentence, Brian. I genuinely apologize. That was just stupid timing. But
I apologize for Neil.
I did have a point in saying, I disagree, because I like shitty, somewhat rusty-looking old bikes because nobody's going to steal those,
But
it's
I'm talking about a bike that's gone
heavy.
past. Sorry, I'm talking in the middle of your sentence now. Sorry, Alan. You apologize.
But you get my point, right?
But I'm not talking about a bike that looks rusty.
I know, and that's why I'm sorry that I interrupted you.
I'm not talking about a cool, rustic-looking bike. I'm talking about a bike that's gone past its point of repair without,
right,
the frame is rusted. It's not coming back. You know what I mean? I'm talking about that. I'm talking about, it's over, kind of. We don't want it then. We want to get rid of it.
Yeah, if a bike has
it.
bent wheels, you just got to put it away.
Brian, was not your point ultimately that thanks God, because ultimately you clear up everything via entropy?
Well, yeah, I mean, we believe we own something until we don't want it, and then God sorts that problem out.
And then he tidies it up. It might take a few years to get rid of it, but it's gone.
Yeah, God sorts that for you. I know you wanted to own it there at one time, and you don't want it now, but I'll sort that out for you, boy. You're okay. Pat on the head. Do you know what I mean?
Doesn't work with children.
You can go back to looking to think you own other things. Sorry, man.
So it doesn't work with children.
Well, children is not. Children is different, I suppose. You can't.
They're not a bike. You're right.
Look, I like that saying. God is tidy. He cleans his shit up. I like that.
Children, Nathan, are an investment that you make against your entropy for later on.
Fair enough.
Well, they better be.
My little insurance policies.
Entropy's coming to you, mate. All the chores you're doing now, I remind my children, all the chores that I did for them, that unfortunately there will come a point in my life that they may have to have the favour returned.
Well, your own body, when you pass away, your own body will decay. So, this body that you own goes back to God, as in God sorts that out. You know, I'll sort that out for you. Don't worry about it. You know, I have entropy on the go. That'll be sorted. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to worry about whether your body decays, right? Your body just, you know, it's sorted. God has already, he has that all, you know, that is all pre-done, you know. So your body is the same, you know. Will you want to own a body if it's all decaying? No, it's not. I don't own that. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to want to know about it.
Thank God for entropy. That's what you're actually trying to say.
Thank God for everything, Nathan.
No, thank God for entropy, specifically.
Well,
no, everything.
Entropy makes existence finite. And, well, the older you get, the wiser you get, and the more you realize that that's for the better. And that's really because of wisdom and God's wisdom, right?
But hang on, so let me clarify what I'm saying. God allows for there to be a brand new shiny bike. And then he also allows for you to throw it away and him solve that problem. He allows for the situation to occur for you to have a body, to have a bike, and then for you to throw that rusty bike away and him solve that problem, and for your body to decompose and you not have to help with that process. All you have to do is die.
I agree.
So my point is you don't really, you only want to own things. You never actually own anything. And until you don't want to own them. And that's the proof. If you owned it, if it was yours, then you would have the responsibility of the decay. But you don't have that responsibility.
Jolly good. Unless it's Trigger's broom.
This is what?
Trigger's broom. You never heard of Trigger's broom?
No.
See, Trigger's broom has had 15 new
Trigger.
handles.
yeah, sorry, Trigger. Sorry, his broom. Yeah.
His
go
broom.
On, sorry, go on.
He's had 15 new handles and 12 new brush heads on that broom. It's lasted very well indeed.
Trigger's broom, yeah.
But is it the original broom? That's the real question.
The real question's what?
I was saying is, if you've changed the head so many times, you've changed the handle so many times, is it really the original broom?
Yeah.
It is as far as Trigger's concerned.
That's the point. That's Trigger's broom.
I don't know if Paul knows who Trigger is, Nathan.
Doesn't matter.
No, I don't. I don't know what Trigger is.
Trigger is a character from a show called Only Fools and Horses that was very popular in the 80s over this side of the world. Trigger was a guy in it, and he was talking about his broom and how long it's lasted. He's only had to change the handle X amount of times and the head X amount of times. And, you know, this broom has gone forever. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, Trigger, you had to change the head and the handle. It's not the same broom. Do you know what I mean? But as far as Trigger was concerned, that's the exact same broom he bought 20 years ago.
The same thing occurs in pro drag racing, right? So someone will rock up in a dragster and they'll start telling the cameraman or whoever's interviewing what the car is, right? And it's a 57 Chevy. No, it isn't, because you've replaced the internal frame completely and all of the outside parts are now carbon fibre and it's got a completely new engine. So in other words, there essentially isn't anything left of the car that originally started off life as a 57 Chevy or whatever it is that they've modded. And the end result is something completely different. It's completely new. Now, obviously, along the way, they've moulded the shapes and parts around that car, so it kind of has it looks like it, but it's a bit Trigger's broom. You know, if you've replaced the engine and you've replaced the chassis and you've replaced the bodywork, and it's got racing seats in it and a different fuel system, it's like, well, what is original? Well, the fuel tank's original. You're like, what?
Well, how
is it?
about all the cells in your body? How about all the cells in your body being replenished every 7 years?
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Every molecule in your body is turned over every 7 to 15 years or something like that. Every molecule, not just the cells, but every molecule. Are you the same thing as you were 7 years ago?
No, clearly not. See a picture of my
This is
handsome
the
self 7 years ago.
this is a really old paradox, isn't it? And I was bugging. I had to look it up. It's called the ship of Thesis. So it's the same thing. If you replace all the parts in a ship, is it the same ship? Which probably goes more back to when you just what you've done there, said there with regards to the body and Brian's last point. But just point out, it's the paradox is most notably recorded by Plutarch in Life of Thesis from the late 1st century. So well recognised. It won't trigger. Was my point to ascribe who to ascribe it to. Plutarch and Thesis' paradox.
Well, I think when it comes to the human being, though, I think what makes that's I think that's a pointing that you're something more than your physical body. That's an indicator. Because if you obviously you carry your memories, but are the memories the molecules know, or the chemical processes know? But also but even if you lose your memories, are you still you? So there's something more to you than just your physical body. There has to be. I think that's a pointing indicator.
And also, no, in answer to your question directly, am I me from 7 years ago? No, most assuredly not.
That's the paradox. That's the question from the Greeks' point of view, isn't it? That whole thing. Because I'm not the same person. I've grown. I'm different. My psychology is different. So I'm on the same ship. I'm on the ship. More fundamentally.
Yeah, I don't know. How does this isn't? I don't know how true this is. If that was the case, then how would we get older?
No, we're talking about getting older.
Okay, it's philosophical thought is all it is. Yeah. Are you the ship, or are you just a master of the ship that you rebuild? That's the philosophical point that I think is coming from Plutarch.
The answer is no, you're not. So, if you look back on your former 8-year-old self, Brian, are you that person?
No, but if all my cells are replenishing themselves, then how could I change? Something has to be different for me to be 7 years older.
So you're not the same. You are different now than you will be tomorrow, and fundamentally different in 7 years from now in more ways than just physiologically.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, all my cells, if all my cells just replenish themselves within the next 7 years, then 7 years' time I'll be just as young as I am now, but that won't be the case.
No, you still succumb to entropy, but replacing them means they're new.
But when you're replenishment, maybe I'm wrong with using the word replenishment, but replenishment to me means, like, if you're replacing something, you don't, like, if you take an old tire off a car, you don't put on an older one. You know what I mean? If you take a brand new one off, you don't put on an older one. Do you know what I'm getting at? It's like, if this is true, then how come I can get older? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Because the process of doing so means that the newer cells are inferior each time, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, it's not really the same. It's not replenishment of the cells then, is it? It's a changing of the cells, but the new cells are not as good as the old cells. Well, how do I get the old ones back?
Well, in the same way as you've got certain reptiles that shed their skin, right, which you can see in a more obvious way. It doesn't mean that the process of shedding skin means that the new thing underneath is suddenly rejuvenated in age. It isn't. It's still getting older and dying.
It's rejuvenated in power, though, because the eagle goes to the highest mountain when he reaches a certain age, sits himself up there, plucks off all his feathers till he has none, and stays up there till all new feathers come back, and then he soars like he's recreated.
Yeah, but I'm still getting older. I'm not to have an issue with it. I'm just saying that age happens.
That's the reason why you're getting older.
Yeah, but replenishment, there's a changing out of the parts. But obviously the parts are not as good as the old parts. You know, because
Well,
7 years ago I had better
really,
parts than I have now.
that's not really the case. That is the case maybe for a boat. You got a bit cheap on your replacements. But for the case of a human, no. The boat's never the same. Starts as a baby, yeah, grows, constantly changing, gets to its pinnacle, might be a little bit the same for a bit, but then when you get into my age, yeah, things are changing. You're replacing with weaker parts. Does that make the ship weaker?
Well, the problem with that is the fact that as you get older, you gain in knowledge and wisdom and understanding. So how is that applicable to the cells that are replenishing themselves and ultimately being less effective within the information being transferred to the new cell?
Again, this is a philosophical discussion, so it's more to do with what is the ship? Is the ship the cells? Yeah, and is the ship getting weaker, or is the ship the old frail man that's the most powerful ship? Yeah, with the most knowledge, the strongest soul. Yeah, so that's the question. What is the physicality? Because with the understanding of the paradox, and what we're discussing is this is the point. The physicality is never the same, neither in shape, design, or even in its component parts, as you guys said. I think it was 7 years you quoted. So, what is the ship? I think is the question.
Yes, it's the idea of identity. Am I my molecules, or am I more than the molecules? Is the ship truly the boards of the ship, or is the ship something else? It comes in the nature of identity. What is it? What is the thing? What carries it from one state to, like, why am I 7 years from now? I'm still the same person, but my body's different. Am I a different person that's happened to, or am I something else? Am I a new person? You know, a brand new person when that all happens. I think that's the nature of the question. I think that's a better way to probably, in my mind, to maybe talk about it.
Well, the problem is
idea of identity.
Yeah, it's a disobjectification issue, because you are not the corporeal self that you see in the mirror. The physical you isn't you. That's not who you are, or who any of us are.
Perfect. On that philosophical note, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the thanks button, and maybe supporting Flatzoid's GoFundMe campaign. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!